Daniel moves to Southern California with his mother, Lucille, but quickly finds himself the target of a group of bullies who study karate at the Cobra Kai dojo. Fortunately, Daniel befriends Mr. Miyagi, an unassuming repairman who just happens to be a martial arts master himself. Miyagi takes Daniel under his wing, training him in a more compassionate form of karate and preparing him to compete against the brutal Cobra Kai. Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode, we'll be covering 1984's The Karate Kid, directed by John G. Avelson. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature. You've heard it at the beginning. On tonight, we're going to be covering The Karate Kid from 1984. But this ain't a plain Jane, ordinary bullshit Colin and Zoheb sitting in on a feature presentation episode. This is very, very special because on this episode, along with myself, is our other co-host, Matt Vella. Of course, you guys know Matt from Upcoming Attractions.
G'day, gang. What's up?
And of course, yeah, that's cool, man. Awesome. Anyways, no, I'm just kidding. with me and Matt, we have a very, very special guest, Jeff Bryan. How are you doing, Jeff? It's so nice to have you on, man.
I'm doing great, man. Thanks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This will be fun to talk about Karate Kid. Be cool with you guys.
Hey, man, I'm special too. Okay?
Yeah.
I feel a little bit slighted here.
We're all special. We're all special in our own way. At least that's what our moms told us, right?
Right. Yeah. And just to fill in some people as well, it was kind of interesting the way that it went about, where we ended up finding Jeff and Jeff ended up finding us and coming on for the feature presentation episode. So I don't want to put any words in your mouth. I don't want to like hype you up or not hype you up enough. I'm going to let you do the talking, Jeff. Give a background on your history with this movie, where it came from, how you got involved with it, the whole kit and caboodle. Knock yourself out. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll keep it brief because I'm sure we got a lot of cinema here to cover.
Yeah.
Well, with Karate Kid, I was, part of the original cast in 1984. I was, my character was the part of Billy, which you probably would not know that because no one ever referred to me as Billy on screen, but that was my character's name. I was part of a group of guys that were known as the Freddy's Gang. So there were 5 of us. Freddy was the kid that Daniel LaRusso was introduced to from his building in Reseda when he came to California. And we were all friends of his, and there were a bunch of scenes on the beach and at the Halloween party and the tournaments and a few other scenes that didn't make it in the movie, which we can discuss. And so I was an actor on that. And 36 years later, I was actually a musician during that period, and that's really what was my main gig, was being a musician. But I got this acting. I had a couple acting jobs. I was in another film, and I did some TV stuff, and Karate Kid was among them. But through the years, as playing keyboards for different people, I ended up joining the band Survivor, which is unusually connected, interestingly connected to Karate Kid, being that they have the song "Moment of Truth," which is known for the trailer song, the theme song for Karate Kid. And I play keyboards for them now, 30-something years later, which is, I still find remarkable.
Even if
I'm sorry? I know. It's just kind of strange. So my connection to Karate Kid goes obviously back to the very, very beginning. I was there during some of the early rehearsals. Just to let you guys know, my part was originally supposed to be 2 weeks long. And quickly after we started filming, they extended my contract for the entire duration of the filming, which was about 4 months or more.
Oh, wow.
And most of that was me showing up to my trailer and finding redacted lines and cut scenes. but they were paying me to stay on the sidelines, which was, for a young actor was difficult and kind of depressing, but it did give me an opportunity. I got to hang out with Pat Morita and work with some very interesting people, and it's an experience that we didn't think that the movie was going to be. Nobody walks into a movie and thinks it's going to be a legacy. It's a job. You're doing a movie, but the movie has stood the test of time. And it's gone beyond that. It's become sort of an icon of where we are in society, and it's just 80s popular culture. It's just we all know it's just become an extremely popular movie, and Yeah, it didn't. I didn't know that. Nobody knew that at the time. But it's been a really interesting path, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's so, like you said, you can't write that kind of fiction. You know, it's so ironic. You know, years later that it comes full circle in that way.
Also, speaking of the popularity of it, we've actually got you at a great time. I think because in addition to everything with Karate Kid's franchise, 3 sequels, an animated TV show which most people forget about. I haven't seen it, but I saw it. But the Cobra Kai series just recently got a third season trailer. So like the Karate Kid hype is kind of high
it's
right
huge.
now.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, the only one I've ever seen is the first one. But what I've done is I want to see what I missed out on, even like the not so highlights of the series. So I actually, when I was going to review this, I actually bought a trilogy pack. So I've got all the other sequels. Nice. And then I'm going to go back to Netflix and I'll watch Cobra Kai series because like I feel like I missed out on something. It's like not watching Harry Potter or something. It's like, what did I miss? Like I know I've seen the good one.
Yeah, you should look at them if you want to, but I don't expect a lot. Because, you know, I mean, you got to understand when they made Karate Kid 2 and Karate Kid 3, they were just capitalizing on the success of Karate Kid. I don't think there was any forethought into, you know, it's just a money-making machine. They were doing what they were doing with Rocky, you know, Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4. And you know, that's just Hollywood for you. But it actually sort of became bigger than that, you know, and the Cobra Kai series is doing something special that they did not do with those other movies that you haven't seen yet. Cobra Kai is actually an extension of the original Karate Kid. It's what happened after they grew up. Whatever happened. Who did they become? And that's really interesting from the standpoint of people that are old enough to remember the original Karate Kid, and it's interesting for people that don't even know the Karate Kid series, you know? So it's, I think it's really kind of cool that they're doing that. I'm actually in Karate Kid 2, and I'm in Cobra Kai in different scenes that they're using from Karate Kid 1.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I still can't figure out where I am in Karate Kid 2, but I have been receiving residuals from that movie since it came out. And I'm thinking, where the hell am I? So now in Cobra Kai, it's easy. I'm in a lot of the flashback scenes from the first season.
That's so funny. That's so awesome too. Good on you, man. That's great.
Yeah, dude, it's super interesting because and honestly, just kind of jumping in with my thoughts because, like you said, we've got a lot of movie to cover. I don't know if I had actually really, honest to God, watched this all the way through in one sitting. I know. I think cultural osmosis. I'd seen this a bunch. I know.
Wait, you're talking about the original movie?
Yes, this original, the one we're talking about. It's original.
Not that long. It's only 90 minutes. You can't make it to a 90-minute movie.
Dude, mine is like 2 hours long. I was like, how the hell is this movie 2 hours long? I was like, Jesus. But I know because I'm the youngest of 4. I was born in 1990. This is something we watched. I know we were watching Gremlins and Karate Kid and Monster Squad, and like we on a diet of 80s horror, like anything like that kind of stuff. We were always on that kind of diet. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I know we watched this movie at some point. I don't really remember when. If I've seen it in full, it's been decades. It's been in such a long time. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Well, and you know the lines. You know, wax on Daniel-san. You know the
they're in the lexicon. You know?
Exactly. It's cultural osmosis that's been absorbed now. But watching it this time, I was like, man, it's kind of strange. I've never sat down and watched this in its entirety. And when I watched it, I think a lot of it still holds up. I think like a lot of 80s movies, there's parts that don't, there's parts that do. That's going to happen with anything. Movies made today are not going to hold up in 2040. There's just stuff that's not either going to be culturally relevant or people are not going to understand because they don't have to, oh, you ride a bike everywhere? That's weird. Like that, I don't ride a bike, you know? Like
what's scarier? They might say, what's a bike?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like,
remember those? Well, now they do that with telephones. You see a movie where they take a telephone off the wall and put it to their head, and people are like, people did that? What's that all about?
I've seen some video online where like some mother's like showing an old landline to their kid, and the kid, it's like they're like, oh, this is a phone. The kid's like looking at like, where's the screen? which just blows my mind.
That's fucking weird. Yeah.
I'm so glad I grew up where I grew up. I was like 17 when I got a phone, and it had no camera. It was basically a brick that flipped open. Like,
but it was the size of a shoebox.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like you could hear it when it opened up. Yeah. And I love, like, I just really, really appreciate that growing up. Just hold like a huge calculator. But there's so much. I think that now watching it with like a 2020 eye, I think there's a lot of stuff that people probably, our age and younger could look at it and be like, a lot of that's cliche now. It's like at the time it wasn't. This is what set the precedent for that stuff to cliche off of Karate Kid.
Right. It was novel at the time.
Right.
This is something I wanted to get into actually because throughout, and I will mention this throughout many scenes, especially in the first half, there's a lot of like, and I'm a big sucker for it, what I would call 80s cheese.
Yeah.
Where there's some fucking really cheesy shit, but it's like, it's part of the charm of a lot of 80s films. Because nowadays, when a film does that sort of stuff, they're sort of doing it like tongue in cheek, winking at the camera, sort of almost like a parody, making fun of it. Because back then, like for example, like there are so many things you would not consider realistic. Like the leader of the Cobra Kai dojo should go to jail for child abuse.
Yeah,
like the fact that like the villains in this are riding motorbikes, high-fiving each other after they physically assault people. Like, but that's what I love about it. That's what I love about this generation of films as well.
But you got to remember, just because they're showing that in a movie and we know better, for society's sake, that shit still happens. People just don't like to admit it. People, I don't think, are as real as they used to be.
Okay, that is also a good point.
And I think that's people are trying to be better people, perhaps, maybe you could say that. But the truth is we're still fucking up in the same ways, just not showing it.
I think it's just in terms of execution, not so much, because you still see some like two-dimensional stuff nowadays. But
yeah.
The more upper class of cinema now will try to like, yeah, he's a fucking dick, but it's because of this or rah. But like, again, what I want to get at is like, I love simple forms of storytelling. Yeah. And the 80s kind of mastered that, I feel. And you see that in these type of coming of age films and stuff like that. And there's a bit of a charm to it. And I love it. So I say it with like no fault of the movie, because it was like this type of execution was very, I would say it's very, not just common, but it was like applauded at the time. It was like, that was the style.
Yeah, but I think it's important to mention that the characters of Karate Kid may appear to be one or two dimensional, but the fact that we could 30 years later build a series around these one-dimensional characters proves that there was a lot of depth that was not able to be explored in the format in which they were able to do it in the 80s.
Well, on that note, and it also goes to the performance, the one character I think I will defend to the grave, I think is very three-dimensional, is Ralph Macchio. Sorry, Daniel. Oh fuck! I'm forgetting it.
Daniel LaRusso's character. You mean
right?
The character of Daniel LaRusso?
Yeah.
Well, they both them and Billy Zabka, both them and Johnny.
Right. Well, what I love particularly about him as a protagonist is, one, I looked like him as a kid, so like I connect to that on like on a personal level. But like I went through in around his age similar shit that he dealt with, right? And the way he handles the situation was very similar to how I would. So, for example, there's a scene. It's a blink and you'll miss it scene, but I think this was really great writing and performance. When like actually, there's a couple scenes where like he's got a bruise or something, he tries to hide it from his mum, and then he lies about it. Like that's what I would do, because it's shameful to admit that you lost or you got beat up. And he doesn't want to worry his mum. And I think like a typical generic, I don't want to say bad writing, but like not as good of writing would be like, oh, the mother sees it, she goes, oh, why don't? He goes, whatever. But like the fact that like he goes out of his way to hide it, and he just gets mad at the town rather than the people doing at it, I think that's very realistic, and you don't see that a lot in films talking about bullying and stuff.
Well, I think what you're talking about, there's a realistic vulnerability to it that wasn't a plastic kind of let's just whitewash it and let's just tell the story. There was some deepness, there was some depth to the in the script, and I'm sure that they struggled with this. And I think I'm a living example of, and myself and the other actors, that they didn't have time in the final analysis to actually explore the rest of his relationships with the other kids that he came in contact with. But it was in the script. There was writing. It's not just there. It's not just implied. It was also there. So there's a lot they had to work with. Perhaps that's why they tried to squeeze 2 other sequels out of it.
Right. It's nice. It's nice to know those things were there. They just didn't have the time to bridge those gaps. Like, they're in there. It's like, but we can't possibly, because and also the beginning of this movie moves at a fucking clip. This thing is like, in the first 10 minutes, I was like, good God, this is moving so quick. But it's interesting. This movie, I think, watching it through a 2020 lens, you have a lot of people that are like, oh, this is kind of cliche. There's stuff like, but this was what set the precedent for, like, how many movies and TV shows have you seen of a guy in some kind of montage when you're the best around and nothing's gonna ever get, dude, it's in Always Sunny, it's in Bob's Burgers, and that all comes from this, when like that was not it at the time. This was a totally different thing.
Yeah, I think I think what makes it special, though, do you remember and I'll explain, that movie, I think it was called My Bodyguard. Do you guys remember that from the 80s? It was who was it? Yeah, a couple not so known actors. Anyway, look it up. It's called My Bodyguard. It was a similar, nothing to do with karate. However, it was about a kid that went to school, was getting beat up, Matt Dillon was in it. And so what they did is this kid befriended one of the biggest, toughest looking characters in the school to be his bodyguard. And he didn't get into fights anymore. And the point why I'm bringing up a different movie is because the reason why Karate Kid, in my opinion, became more of an icon and special is because although it's using karate as a vehicle to tell the story, that's not the story to me. The story is about bullying. The story is about dealing with societal, pressures you have as a kid going to high school, especially a new kid in a new area and a new, all the whole 9 yards. Plus, he didn't have a father in the movie, so his teacher became his father figure. And so my point is that there were other movies that kind of touched on that, but didn't grab the attention that Karate Kid did, from the 80s.
I think you started to touch on it, but like there's a line in the film from Miyagi, which I think is it's really true. Where he goes, I'm going to paraphrase it here. Something like his plan is: you go to the tournament, you fight, win, lose, it doesn't matter. The fact that you tried to fight, you'll earn their respect. Either way, they leave you alone. Which is like, it's sad but true. Like that's kind of how it is with like especially adolescent males and that sort of stuff. It's like, by standing up, you can earn some sort of level of respect. Right. You could go on about toxic masculinity or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But there is like a lot of like males work that way who are like, violent. It's like, if you stand up to the bully, sometimes you don't have to win, but they might respect you for it, which is weird, but that's true.
But I think it's trying to repurpose or redefine what winning means.
There you go. I like that.
I read a quote.
I think you know what I mean by that.
Yeah. I read a quote from, I can't remember the name of the screenwriter, but there was a screenwriter who was given this story and he turned it down to write for it. And they end up giving it to another screenwriter. And the reasoning was, this is on IMDb trivia, so this could be bullshit. But this guy said his quote was, he didn't like the idea that like the moral of the story was win, lose, doesn't matter, and he wins. Like he wanted to write it as if like Daniel lost, which mirrors sort of like what happened with Rocky. But then the guy also said, but they got like 3 sequels out of it, so what the fuck do I know? which made me laugh a bit.
Well, I mean, let me ask you this. Let me put it to you this. Let me put it to you this way. Suppose Daniel did the crane kick, and he missed.
And he missed.
right? Because I mean, he's never done it before, and gets his ass kicked, loses the tournament. How do you think that would make you feel?
Right.
Well,
yeah.
That's the other thing. It's like, how do you make a film satisfying for the audience?
Right.
With loss,
It's
and
still
that's
Hollywood,
why, Yeah, 9 times out of 10, the good guy wins. And I remember back when I was doing my master's in film, I had this amazing teacher. His name was Rene Hernandez. He was shortlisted for an Oscar once. This guy's pure genius. And I remember he said something to me that sort of changed my perception of storytelling. And I'm going to fuck up this quote, but basically he said something to the effect of storytelling is about a character who faces an obstacle and then whether they overcome the obstacle or fail. And I remember thinking, like, what do you mean or fail? The good guy always overcomes the obstacle in the story. And he's like, no, that's just like the main one. At the end of the day,
There's
for you
other
to have
options.
a successful story, your character has to learn a lesson,
Right.
and they can only really learn the lesson by taking on the obstacle. So there are films when the good guys do win or lose. Yeah.
And that's what I meant by redefining the word. That's what I meant by redefining what winning means. Because it doesn't necessarily, the tournament was really unimportant from the perspective of what he learned from this. And so I think that's what is the takeaway. And I think that's why people have grown fond of the story. I don't know. I suppose if you're really into, fight scenes and boxing and, wrestling and all that, I mean, maybe it is about the winning the particular tournament, but that's not what the movie's about to me. It's about standing up for what you believe in and learning from that.
I'm going to be real with you guys. I did not think this episode would get this deep this quickly.
Well, it's actually,
I love it. I love it.
It's actually why I think a good example is the Rocky franchise of why it starts here and eventually kind of like, it's like, I love seeing him beat the shit out of Ivan Drago. Who doesn't love that? But at the same time, I was like, what is this? This is just for like revenge. And part 3 is like, what the fuck? Part 3 and 4 and 5, I was like, I could do 1 and 2 and maybe Rocky Balboa, but
by the end of that series, I get a little confused. Was he trying to make Rambo before he was making Rambo? He was just, it's all about fighting, and I was like, come on.
Yeah, exactly. And the first one's just, I got to take a shot. I have to do something to at least try to get the hell out of here. And it's like, that's what I love, is breaking out of that cast that people are trying to kind of put you in. You can see Daniel was like, I'm a kid from this lower income kind of neighborhood, and I need to break out of that. And I can't let these people define me just by where I live or the car that my family drives. Like, that's fucked up. That's not what I'm about. And I love that. I think that's what I think is fantastic about it. I think there's a lot of stuff that holds up in this movie. It reminds me actually a lot of Footloose. Kid moves to town, no dad, mom. There's something there where, like, instead of music, it's martial arts, but there's the girl, and the girl has a boyfriend, and the boyfriend's a dick. And it's like, oh, there's a lot of very, very different, but in the same way of like Hot Rod with Andy Samberg, this like montage of like going somewhere, like, dude, that montage is amazing. But at the time, that kind of montage of him, I can't remember the band that Kevin Bacon's listening to in that warehouse. But yeah, that song I remember watching as a kid, like, oh man, being a teenager is so complicated. and it's funny, but at the same time,
it is complicated.
There is something about that. Right. Yeah. Your parents don't understand. These are parents who grew up in the 50s. These are kids who are growing up in a totally different time. Right. Same thing as today. I mean, it's totally different. But all in all, I really enjoyed it a lot. I think like I said, I think there's stuff that does and doesn't hold up, but the core of the theme of, like, what he says at the end, he's like, yeah, whether I win or lose, I stood up to him, but I will find no balance if I don't go out there and try to win. If I let this one obstacle, yes, I've trained and I've done all that, but at this one physical obstacle, if I don't overcome that, then I will never find balance in the force, basically.
Well, that is very insightful, because that's exactly why I think that's exactly what the movie is really about, right there. It's about that kind of balance and learning to take certain calculated risks that are necessary for growth, right? Mm-hmm. But and that leads me to kind of Cobra Kai in a sense. And I know we're not here to talk about Cobra Kai, but it's the reason why they were able to create characters based on the 1984 characters that we're able to have the depth that they have and to tell a story that hasn't been told exactly as just a rehash of 1984. It's a continuation, and I think it's brilliant. I don't know how successful they will eventually, right now they seem to be very successful, but who knows what'll happen and how many seasons it'll go, but what a great idea.
Well, yeah, and I've seen the clips of oh my God, I'm blanking on his name, William Zabka, and I was like, dude, he is amazing. I was like, dude, William Zabka is Johnny Lawrence in Cobra Kai. I haven't watched a lot of it. I watched a clip montage of him, and I was like, oh, he is gonna be the best part of that show. It's like he looks amazing in it, dude. I was like, that's really,
he's getting to get a second chance, man. It's just amazing,
right? Well, and it's also like seeing guys of the 80s try to break out of that and be like, what the hell does this mean? And like looking at a piece of paper, like trying to pronounce somebody's name. He's like, that's not really your name, right? And I was like, oh my God, that's so good.
Yeah,
dude.
But you know what they did with this movie that's so incredible is that through the years since it came out, I would say especially in the last 15, 20 years, there's been this folklore about people having, and there were forums about it, people discussing whether or not Johnny Lawrence was really a good guy and Daniel LaRusso.
Yeah.
And Daniel LaRusso was the bad guy because he used an illegal move, and he's the one that tried to make a hit on his girlfriend and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. And so there's an argument for that, and I used to just kind of poo-poo it, but the producers picked up on that, and I love that they started the movie with the idea that, started the series kind of like, we can see why Johnny was the way he was. And I'm a little surprised that they chose, Daniel obviously didn't learn the lessons that he was meant to learn. So perhaps they kind of were feeding into that folklore a little bit.
I think that's a smart thing to take to the series, but I just want to be on record. No, Daniel's the good guy. That motherfucker broke that girl's radio. That shit's not okay, man. Fuck that noise. I am Team Daniel all the way. Fuck Cobra Kai. Bunch of stormtrooper evil motherfuckers.
I don't disagree with you. Don't kill the messenger, man. I'm just telling you. I've read.
I'm on board. Look, you're not the only one. Like, How I Met Your Mother had an amazing episode where Barney was like talking about how his idol was the Karate Kid, and then Ralph Macchio shows up and was like, no, I met the other Karate Kid. I hate Ralph Macchio. He's the bad guy, which is a great episode. But like, if you need any evidence that Cobra Kai are the bad guys, they literally yell the word die as they punch. While they're practicing, they're like, die, die, seriously. Die. And it's like, how much more of a bad guy can you be?
Well, I like the fact that just from what I've heard from Cobra Kai, every villain is the hero of their own story. Darth Vader was trying to do something good. It's like a lot of these people were trying at some point to do something good, and and that's what's fantastic. Is like trying to cram all of that into a 2-hour movie with Johnny, very with hard. Daniel. Dude, it's impossible. Yeah. And that's why I think moving to television so many years later is a perfect forum for that. That is really good.
I totally agree with you. They couldn't have done it in a different forum, in a different media format.
And
couldn't have been done. It would have been just another shitty attempt at trying to make Karate Kid popular. Mm-hmm. This way, they can explore those layers, and smart move, man. It's really smart.
Yeah. Before we get into the traditional format of the episode where we go scene by scene, I saw an opportunity for a segue earlier that we've totally missed, but I'd love to bring it up again. You were talking earlier, Colin, about the connection between Rocky and Karate Kid. You were talking about similar themes and stuff, but I had a chat earlier with Jeff, and he was talking about how the director, what was it? Like he wanted to make like another Rocky, but in a different setting or something to that effect.
Yeah. That's a good point. It's a good point to bring up that the Karate Kid was they were using the Rocky series, the Rocky story, as I'm not saying that they weren't recreating it for kids or anything like that, but it was something that was not, it wasn't an accident that there were correlations between the two series. Mm-hmm. A lot of the people that worked on the Rocky series were people that were involved in Karate Kid. the director, the music. Even Bill Conti, who wrote the score for Rocky, was the same guy that wrote the score for Karate Kid. So they used, Jerry Weintraub, although he didn't produce Rocky, he was involved enough with the people that were involved with Rocky to pull their talents and go, I like what I'm seeing here. I want to see some of that. John Avelson was certainly, after he won an Oscar for his first attempt at a major movie, which was Rocky, was a hot item in 1983. And one of the things that made him so attractive to Jerry Weintraub was the fact that he had the Steadicam, and he was one of the inventors of the Steadicam apparatus at the time. Was top of the state of the art technology, and it was worked into every fight scene. I mean, you had to be there to see how amazing this was. I mean, it literally looked like something from outer space. I mean, the guy puts on this huge contraption with probably a 200-pound camera on a hydraulic system, and he could jump up and down. But that camera would remain right where it was. So it allowed the cameraman to run into the fight scene and run back and run forward. Now they can do that with computer angles and all kinds of different things. But in those days, that was state of the art, and that was one of the very I'm sure it was an extremely important reason why they brought John in. So yeah, there was a lot of things. So there's music, there was the shooting of it. And then, if you look at the story itself, there were some references with respect to the underdog. And the Rocky story is an underdog story. It's about, a guy who's not favored to win and goes all the way. And that's exactly why, to go back to our other points, why Daniel LaRusso wins. It's mirroring that Rocky story. They're trying to get that Rocky excitement. They're trying to build that. Remember, they're trying to make a movie to sell tickets, Right. So they're not just trying to make a statement. If you come away and you learn something, fantastic. But it is entertainment. And the Rocky story was so successful that they were trying very hard to maintain a certain structure that story had. And
it's the underdog story is universal from centuries. It's like the whole thing of nobody likes seeing the guy who wins all the time win. It's like, okay, well, we kind of figured that. But it's like when that person you don't think hits that uppercut, you're like, oh, shit. Like, I was not expecting that. That's why I used to love boxing as a kid and watching that and seeing these people come out, like Chuck Wepner, who's the inspiration for Rocky. That's the whole thing. And I was like, watching that fight is like, oh, my God, this is really incredible. But do you guys have any more like opening impressions? Do you want to just go ahead and jump in and we can start taking this scene by scene? Do you guys have anything else you want to say?
I'm good to go, man. It's a pretty long intro for us. So.
I didn't want to cut anybody off.
I thought we were signing off. No, just kidding.
But we covered a lot there that are in other scenes later. So I'm sure we'll get through it. But yeah, I'm excited. This is a good one.
We open on Daniel and his mom. They're arriving from New Jersey to California. I like all this. You can feel and there's so many things that they actually set up really well that come back, of Miyagi doing the acupuncture, of her pushing the car and running. I was like, dude, that is a sign of a good script. That is a good script where there's funny things, there's good things that come back later on. I loved that.
Also, to interject there, it's very important because when I first saw the movie, the finished movie, during the very opening montage when they're driving across country, it's very important to listen to the dialogue. Because they're setting up the story in a dialogue, and you don't even know what the story's about at this point, and you don't even see any actors. You just hear the car, you see the car, and you hear them talking. Generally his mother talking to him in the car about it's going to be great, blah blah blah. But they're setting up, they're setting up a lot of stuff. So you don't want to miss that. You want to pay attention to it because it's helpful, I think.
Yeah, something about this whole scene. Once he even arrives and they're going up the stairs and talking, he meets Frankie and stuff. Looking at it now this is probably my fifth or sixth time watching this movie, I imagine, throughout my life. It really stands out to me how much exposition they're able to dump in one scene.
It's a good point.
It's actually kind of impressive. Like, now, look, is it really obvious the way they do it? Yes. But I'm in the camp of I'm okay if you do a massive exposition dump with me, as long as you get it done within the first 15 minutes. Because I'd rather you do that trying quickly in one scene than try and scatter it out and artificially inflate your first half of your movie. Because some movies try and do that because they don't want to look like they're spoon feeding you, right? But what they do instead is just make it like weirdly long.
Well, unlike a movie like Dune, where the beginning is you need to read the whole damn 400-page book before you understand the first scene,
right? Yeah. So like looking at this now, like at first I was like, oh, this is a lot of exposition, dude. But then I'm like, no, this is good. Like they knock all the shit I need to know out in 5 minutes. And they do it like while walking up a staircase for the most part. That's pretty good.
Oh, and they do it while rolling with credits. As like you have there's
that's why it's easy to miss.
It's exposition, but
it's important.
Yes,
and you don't think it's important because you're still seeing credits. You're just trying to get acclimated to it. And actually, the movie's really going full bore at that point. And if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss some details.
Right, exactly. It's very easy to write that off as being like, okay, can we get to California? It's like, no, there's actually a reason. Like, this is the guy who directed Rocky, okay? And I looked that up. I was like, okay, no, this isn't in here for no reason. I was like, okay, got it, gotcha. I trust you.
As they move in, also, I can't help but notice, I looked like Daniel here at this age. My mum had the same haircut as his mum. So, like, I'm really vibing with this movie. I'm
that's all it takes, huh?
See, that's weird because as a kid, my mom looked like Mr. Miyagi, and I don't know what her haircut was. She looked absolutely awful.
As a kid, I looked like Billy in the. Oh, never mind.
Dude, that guy looks so much like you. I swear.
It's so strange. But yeah, so we get a lot of this set up. He's basically saying, it's a fish out of water kind of thing right off the bat.
Right.
I'm from New Jersey. I'm not used to this. There's no winters here. You get this really good banter.
Plus, he's got a thick New York accent.
Dude.
He's got the Italian mannerisms.
Nah, I don't want to take off the glasses. Nah.
So he's not from LA.
Well, and it made me think of Tony Soprano's son and The Sopranos. Was like, what? No fucking ziti? It's like the first thing I thought. I was like, God, I love that show, dude. So yeah, he, as soon as they get to California, though, he's making friends, of course, by kicking people in the face with the door. That's how you make friends right off the bat. I love this bit though. It's a good way of like not only introducing Freddie Fernandez, but then also the woman at the bottom of the steps is Happy Gilmore's grandmother. That's Frances Bay.
I know,
amazing.
Isn't that great? She passed away not too long ago, but
when you start looking at her filmography, she worked like a motherfucker, dude. She was in so much stuff. I immediately recognized her. It's like Mouth of Madness, Happy Gilmore. I was like, she's in a lot of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
I was like, I love this woman, dude. She's great. She's in Seinfeld, the Marble Rye episode. It's classic, dude. It's so good. Yeah. We're really here in the first 5 minutes. We're introduced to Freddie Fernandez, which I thought his part was going to be a lot bigger, but I think is that one of the things.
So did we.
That's what I was about to say. Is that one of the things that kind of wound up on the cutting room floor?
Oh my God. Dude, there's scenes, we'll get to them, but there were scenes of us passing a joint around.
Hell yeah.
During right before the big skeleton ass kicking, which did not make it in the movie. If instead what they did is they had Johnny Lawrence, I'm jumping way ahead, Johnny Lawrence's character, rolling a joint on the toilet in the stall, but there were other scenes of us doing stuff. There were scenes of us egging Daniel on at the beach to talk to the girl, Allie.
Yeah.
At the time it was just a girl. We didn't know who she was. And there's a ton of little things that you would expect to have in real life with kids, just joking around and stuff. The only person though that lived in that apartment building in the movie was Freddie, not me, not any of the other guys in that group. So it made sense that he happened to run into Freddie, and it's a kid that he's actually going to school with. So they bond right away.
Yeah, that's what was strange to me is like right off the bat, he's introduced like, hey, I'm Freddie. I'm helping you with your move in. It's like, man, this kid seems cool. And then he's just kind of like, and see you later. And I was like, okay, gotcha. I was like, but his intro was like, wow, this is kind of strange. You don't see him again though.
Yeah, so that's something I haven't noticed that. I didn't notice that in my first I think, a few times watching it, but watching it for this episode, knowing that, Jeff was going to be on board, there were some deleted scenes that involved more Frankie and Frankie's crew. It really started standing out to me. Sorry, Freddie. I keep calling him Frankie. Yeah. Fuck, thank you.
Well, there is a Frankie in there. There's Frankie Avalon Jr. is one of the other guys.
Right, that's why I'm fucking up. Okay. So it was really standing out to me because he's kind of in like the first like third of the movie, just as he's more of a plot device than a character. He's kind of used as a way to bring Daniel into this world.
He's the catalyst.
Right? He's what helps us assimilate into the storyline and stuff. But then he kind of disappears for almost the entire movie, and then you just see him towards the end in the thing. So
right.
So I can understand from the filmmaker's perspective why they would do that, maybe like pacing or whatever. But that's the sort of stuff what happens, I think, when you start cutting things out. You start getting characters whose purpose is kind of, I would say, not like destroyed, but it's like they become less important. And so I actually want to ask you, Jeff, like, so a lot of these scenes, like, was there another storyline? Or was it more just like context of giving Daniel's character like a childhood?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. First of all, as you know, when he came to Reseda, he had no friends. I mean, this was his first day at, home. You have to assume he's starting the school year, completely, from square one. He doesn't know anybody, literally. And excuse me. And so in the script, and I wish I looked for the script. I can't find my copy of it. I have it buried somewhere. There were other little things that were going on that were, that kind of sealed his, I'm talking about Daniel. He gave him a sense of perspective that not everybody in school was a karate gang member, because if you zoom out at the way the movie was edited, it looks like everybody in school that was, popular was a karate person, and that's really unrealistic. And I'm sure that they had to make those choices knowing that they only had a couple hours. It wasn't going to be like a mini series. So I think that there was room originally when they wrote the script to introduce these other characters and to try to develop relationships. But I don't think that decision was made until we started filming, because we had scenes. They hired us, and they hired us for a reason. And they ended up not needing it. And I think that was decided after they had already gone into production on some of this stuff. So it's yeah, go ahead. I'm done.
I wonder if one of the reasons for that was, just from what I could gather from reading online, it seems to be the casting of Pat as Mr. Miyagi. Some of the producers weren't confident on it at first. Originally, they wanted like a more serious, like samurai type actor. And then this guy, who, by the way, does not speak in broken English, which blew my mind because he does it so well. I was watching some interviews.
No, he's a comedian.
Like, wow. Yeah, that's the thing. He's a stand-up comedian. And which kind of explains why his comedic timing is so fucking great.
I loved being around him.
We're going to get into that.
We'll get into that, man. He was Arnold from Happy Days.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Dude, you got to go check it out. He was on the series for like years.
Yes. I'm not going to be able to unsay it now, but like, I wonder if maybe producers or something were like doubting his performance or something. And so maybe they decided to put more of an emphasis on the kids rather than the relationship. I wonder.
I can speak to that a little bit because I know a little bit. The job was not offered to him. Originally, he wasn't even in the running. The thing is that they wanted Bruce Lee realism. They wanted that kind of Chuck Norris real. They didn't want it to make it a caricature of itself. They really wanted realism, and that's why they went for the Steadicam. That's why they went for the fight scenes to be it's just spot on as they could make them. When I don't know how he came to them, but when Pat Morita became known of this part, he knew that instinctively that this was something he could do. And he spent an enormous amount of energy to try to convince them to give him that part. He auditioned more than anybody else in this movie. He did, from what I was told, he did something like 5 casting sessions on film.
Fuck, that's crazy.
It was not an easy, and even once he nailed it, it was, I'm sure behind closed doors, they had differences of opinion. They were so afraid that his Happy Days persona and his comedic persona would bring would lessen the lesson, like make less, the fear, the strength that character needed to bring and boy, did he prove them they made the right decision. I mean, the guy, he won a freaking Oscar for it, So,
oh shit, I did not know that.
I thought it was just a nom.
He was nominated. Sorry, he was nominated for an Oscar.
No, still.
I did read the drunk scene. He was nominated for an Oscar for that. But the ironic thing is that the producers wanted to cut it out, but the director fought hard to keep that scene in. Apparently, he was like, "This is the essence of his character. It's really important," and they wanted to cut it out. Apparently, which is insane to think.
Yeah, about his history with the I think it was Vietnam.
Yeah, which, by the way, oh fuck, we're jumping around here, but that's okay. I spent a considerable amount of time last night because I was thinking about it I don't know why I thought, but it was World War II. I'm like, there's no way he would have been old enough to fight World War II. So I looked up his age, World War II. I'm doing all these calculations, and I'm like, aha, I found a plot hole. And then the second I thought, I finally figured it out. I'd done all the math. I'm like, oh, fuck, there was the Vietnam War. It was probably that.
Well, it could have been the Korean War, too. I mean, he probably could have been old enough for that one. But
I guess.
But definitely, I think it was Vietnam, and I think that's what it was. But I could be wrong on that, though. It wasn't important. What's important was that he fought in a war. He had loss that he dealt with. I think it was his wife.
Yes.
Yeah. And this was all stuff that I think he invented. I don't think it was in the script.
Whoa.
Directly. It was stuff that I think he and the director, decided to create and to give the character more depth. The interesting thing is that because you brought up Pat Morita, he was nothing like that character when those cameras weren't rolling.
Oh yeah,
he was so funny. Yeah. Well, I remember hanging out with him, and he used to, I forget the car. He had like a Plymouth or some kind of old convertible, pretty cool car, all like a classic, and like a 1950s thing. And the license plate said ARNOCAR, Arno car, right? And I remember asking him, I'm like, hey, what does that license plate mean? He goes, not Fonzie car, not Richie car, Arno car. Like, we cracked up so many times on that set. That guy was just so, I mean, you have to understand the atmosphere making that movie, even though we were all somewhat friendly, we didn't know each other prior to that. I mean, not well, but there was tension on the set, and it was the tension that John Avelson wanted to create, because I mean, you're talking about a bully movie, right? And you're not going to see Ralph's character, chumming it up and having lunch with Johnny Lawrence. He didn't want that. He wanted to bring that fear and that that anxiety. He wanted to bring it to the table when the film was rolling. So he created an atmosphere where, it was kind of hard who to talk to. I mean, I'll tell you, Martin Cove, Kreese, that guy is not acting. Okay.
Oh shit. Really?
That's the freaking guy. He is a badass, and he's that way in off screen, on screen. That's his character. It's probably why it's pretty much the only kind of role he's played is been, a tough guy. But Pat, man, he broke the ice all the time. He just he went across enemy lines and just yucked it up. I mean, he was a comedian and a fairly successful one at that. So everybody wanted to talk to him and just hang out with him. Plus, he was just a generous person. You could tell that
that's awesome, man.
He didn't make a whole lot of, he didn't distinguish people by their roles in the movie. You could have been an extra and he would have told you a joke. You know,
That's
he was just a
awesome.
nice guy.
That's so nice to hear, man. Like, yeah, because Kreese was the first time I ever saw that actor was Rambo: First Blood Part 2.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I ever saw him. So when I saw him in this, I was like, and then I started seeing him in Cobra Kai. Bless you, Matt. When I started seeing him in Cobra Kai stuff, I was like, oh shit! I was like, I didn't realize he was the dojo master in Cobra in Karate Kid.
Yeah.
And I started once I started putting it together, I was like, yeah, he kind of is that guy. And I was like, I don't get he kind of is that dude. Hey, man, play to your strengths. Fuck it, go for what you know.
You know, it's a funny. I don't know if this is really that interesting or not, but my wife. Many years ago, she used to work at the water district where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a customer in her district.
Oh, cool.
Martin Cove. And so he'd come in to pay his bill or whatever, and the whole office would get nervous. They didn't know if he was going to punch them or if he was going to write the check, and she would come home and tell me, "Didn't you work with him?" I go, yeah, he was in the movie. Because I don't want to deal with him. He's scary.
Yeah, like it's always awesome when you hear, because he's so Pat Morita is so stoic the whole time, and he's so like once he's laughing on the boat and he tosses Daniel out, like I was doubled over laughing, and I was like, it's so nice to see him get out of that character even for just a second. I was like, and it's hilarious. He's like, what belt are you? He's like, what is it? JC Penney, $3.98.
JC Penney.
And I was like, dude, that is fucking great.
JC Penney, $3.
Right, exactly. That's the part of that I absolutely loved. But
it's not surprising. It's not surprising to me that he was so so amazing in that role, because if you look at some of the great comedians through the years, Richard Pryor, all the way up to Robin Williams, all these guys that were just really, really, really fantastic comedians. They were amazing. I mean, they're amazing actors, and it's not surprising that he had that depth, because in order to be a comedian, I think that's probably got to be the hardest job in the world.
I've said this before. Comedians make some of the best actors.
It's been proven. It's just it's there's so many examples of that. I agree.
Look at Gene Wilder, and it's like, dude, that guy is, I mean, good God, he's so good. Like the opening scene of Willy Wonka and the ending scene are just, good God, dude, this guy is so amazing. I'm sorry, I could talk about Gene Wilder all day. He's like one of my fucking heroes.
Well, it's speaking, I tell you, I don't think I can watch the Johnny Depp version of that after the Gene Wilder.
I've never seen it. I don't.
It's just, I don't even want to.
Yeah, I'm sure that they do. I'm sure that he's good in it, and I'm sure he does well with the material that he has. I'm just not interested in that product. I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't.
There are, and that brings us back to Pat, because, they could have used they tried to use different actors and different dojos in Karate Kid 2 and 3, but you can't replace Pat.
No.
He just was so defined that role that anybody to try to, it would have been a big mistake to try to replace him.
Right. Yeah. Really in the first, and I'm going to kind of like buckshot approach this as we go on. And if there's moments that you guys want to stop me, because in the first 10 minutes, I mean, looking right at it, by the 15th minute mark, Daniel's gotten the shit beat out of him, and we are introduced to, we have conflict from the 15-minute mark until 2 hours. That's the insanity. It's like, it's just this constant, like you said, I love that was the tension on set, because it feels like that in a movie. It's very tense this whole time.
Exactly.
There's the girl you're arguing with, you're questioning your sensei, you're questioning, should I even be here? That's so brilliant. It's very, it just drips off the movie to me of just constant, moments like that. Like I said, we get this great moment with Francis Bay. Daniel's invited to this party. We're introduced to Mr. Miyagi. We see him with Ali Mills, and we're also introduced to Johnny. And there's something funny too. The 80s love dirt bikes. They loved like Lost Boys. I was like, dude, they loved
the dirt bike was the symbol of the badass.
Right. Well, it's like I can't have a motorcycle, but I don't want to ride a bike anymore. And it's like they loved that. To me, like dirt bikes are synonymous with the 80s of like Lost Boys, this movie. Like there's so many of them where there's like a dirt bike race, or like, what was that damn movie they did in the 80s about BMX racing? Or was it called, oh my God, like, oh, that's going to drive me nuts. I know my friend Michael Grizzard is killing me right now because he loves that movie and he's going to kill me when he listens to this. And I know he's screaming.
Are they old enough to ride dirt bikes?
No, I used to ride dirt bikes when I was 14.
Okay, damn. Okay, so I'll just
I don't know what it was like in Australia, and I don't know what it was like where you live, but on the West Coast in LA, you know, that I was riding dirt bikes. That was just something we did, you know. It was like a pastime.
It wasn't unusual.
Didn't faze me at all.
Well, we just ride kangaroos, so
yeah. We just hopped in a pouch and put a carrot in front of them. I think in state of Tennessee, it's like age 14, you can get a motorcycle license. Like at 16, driving. Like,
I had one.
Young.
It was like a little, but you couldn't take it on the road. You had to be on dirt. You had to be on a track or something.
Right. Yeah. You can't just go up the LA freeway, you know, on your.
But man, it was very popular through the 70s and 80s in the West Coast, on the West Coast. Yeah. So, to me, that just seemed like, that makes sense. Yeah.
Can I also ask a question about this beach scene?
No, I'm just kidding, dude.
From American perspectives, like, was soccer ever popular? Because I always think of soccer as like more of a European thing.
I thought that was odd.
Right. So I'm not weird thinking that, because I've seen like the very few times I've ever seen a soccer ball in a Hollywood movie, it's always an English person, right? I've never seen Americans hold a soccer ball, I think, ever in my life. Soccer
is never, other than, and maybe it was like, because maybe it was like this for parents. I know that AYSO was a very popular soccer league for, for young kids.
Yeah.
In the 80s. Mm-hmm. And so I know my sister has a daughter who's been raised on soccer, soccer. So I think it never really caught on as a professional sport here. It is, but people don't really pay much attention to the profession, but it's always been something for kids. So in that regard, it wasn't really shocking, but I don't know why they chose soccer. They just did.
Right. Dude, you are exactly right, because I'm the youngest of four. All of us played soccer, if not once, 2 or 3 times as kids, but we never picked up a soccer ball after that. We always went on to play basketball or baseball or football.
Exactly.
It's like soccer is like a beginning hand-eye coordination like sport. And that's what it feels like.
And then the big boys play football.
Right. And I hated playing football because I was 6'4" and 13 years old. And I was like, dude, I'm getting the shit smacked out of me and tired of this. I'm going to go be goalie for soccer now because I'm so tired of this. But you're exactly right, Matt. Like as older, no. But as a kid, like, oh God, dude, every kid played soccer. Like Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Yeah.
Colin, don't you find it interesting? Because we both live in the States, that it's as popular as it is, even now, it's hugely popular. Soccer. It's interesting. It's never really caught on as a mainstream sport here. From the perspective of the NBA or the football.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I can remember Mia Hamm being a big thing in the 90s, but then Pele before that. I couldn't tell you a soccer player's name right now. I was like, Beckham, maybe? And I was like, that's really about it. Exactly. It's like there's only these few. When Beckham came out with Keira Knightley, that was a big deal. Yeah. But other than that, and I just watched it because I
don't know why. We just don't seem to care about football as FUT ball, then we consider it FOOT ball,
Oh, I was just trying to think in my head why they choose soccer. And I just thought to myself, international audience, they wanted to get like Europe, because I know it's massive in Europe, but I'm probably overthinking it. Like they probably just wanted something for him to do. Like, that's the reason I talked to the girl. Fuck it.
I think honestly, I've never thought about it before, but in the last 3 seconds, I came up with this thought. and that is I think that just a lot of kids in high school and junior high were in those soccer leagues, and it just seemed like something you did in junior high and high school, so they did it.
Right. Well, they definitely didn't have cheerleaders, though. That's what weirded me out. I was like, wait, what the hell? And I was like, are these girls just like practicing cheerleading at the same time they're practicing soccer?
No, there was no need for cheerleaders. It was during it was just during PE.
Okay, that's what I was like, dude. I do not think that. Whoa, wait, what the hell? And
It wasn't a tournament.
Because there is a cheerleading scene in this movie. Like, oh, she's practicing, right? Is that what
that's the only thing I can think is like, wait, soccer teams don't have cheerleaders, and I was like, wait a minute.
No, she
was
was practicing for football.
Okay. That's what really threw me off. It's like, listen,
the soccer during that scene, and by the way, that scene that we're talking about is in a junior high. It's not in a high school. It's a small junior high in Woodland Hills, and that particular scene was just during PE class, just during third period or whatever. It's just one of the activities that they did apparently in that particular high school. It had no other meaning, but I think now that I think about it, they did connect it, because if you remember when he was on the beach, the first time he got his ass beat, he was messing around with a soccer ball. In fact, we all were.
Yeah.
There's other scenes that did not get into the movie that we were playing soccer. And so that was something to do at the beach. And I guess they tied it over that way in high school. But it really, other than that, don't look any deeper than that. That's all it was.
Yeah. If it were the 90s, it'd be a hacky sack, they just like move it to something else. Pretty much we're right there where, quickly this fight breaks out. Johnny makes short works of Daniel, who has no defense whatsoever. Like, I was like, dude, block a punch. Jesus. Like, come on, dude. Like you're walking right into these things. Defeated Cobra Kai, Allie and Freddy all leave Daniel to the beach. Freddy's just like, oh, wait, I'm leaving. This guy sucks. I laughed at that. He's like, oh,
you really pick fine friends to hang around with, Freddy.
Yeah, exactly.
That's your big line, right?
I got to tell you a story about that. By the time we got to, I was at Leo Carrillo Beach, which is just north of Ventura up here in LA, and beautiful beach. And it's kind of a private beach. I think it was even owned by Jerry Weintraub. It was his property. And
nice.
What's interesting about that is by the time we got to those scenes, I was getting a little antsy. I was being paid and I was on the, coming to work, but I wasn't working. And I get to my dressing room and there's a line I get to say. And I'm like, yes, fucking yes. I get to work today. This is amazing. And I'm working with John Avelson. It's not like I'm doing some B-roll shit I'm in the movie here. Finally.
Yeah.
So we're all lined up. We're all lined up. He's getting his butt kicked. Remember that? Well, what you're not seeing prior to that, there were scenes of us discussing who's going to win. And there was all kinds of shit going on the beach that day. And we were, it was Friday that went into Saturday. So, we were on, it was golden hour. We were making triple money at that point. And you could feel the tension on the set amongst the crew, because they knew that they needed to get these shots. They couldn't have it go on. So there was a little bit of urgency. So the scene, he's on the, Daniel gets hit. He falls to the sand, and I'm supposed to lean down and say, and I look up at Freddie and I say, you really pick fine friends to hang around with, Freddie. So what I did, I'm laughing. What I did was I said, fuck, I'm going to make this an Oscar moment. Let's do it. So I jump up and I go, you really pick fine friends to hang around, like dead meat, and they cut. I'm like, oh shit. I was nervous. I was like, shit. And John walks up to me. He walks, hey man, just say the line. It's just say the line. Okay. That was my moment. And then they make it an off-screen line. You hear my voice, but you don't see me. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck.
I'd have done the same thing too. I honestly would have been like, this is my moment. I'm doing it, dude. I'm fucking doing it.
It was funny though.
I have done that. There's an Australian movie I was an extra in called The Combination back in like 2008. And I was just literally in the background of some nightclub scene. And my goal was, I'm going to try and walk in front of the lead actor as many times as possible so I can get my face on screen. And
smart move.
And then at one point I did it and the director called cut and he comes up to me. And I'm like, oh, I'm fucking dead. And he goes, I like that. Do it again. And I'm like, yes. And then I always did that. And I tried doing it again later and he got mad at me. But he liked it the first time I did it, so it was okay. I made the
That's
shot.
funny. You know what? A lot of people don't know this. The other guys in our group, there was Israel Warby, who was Freddie. There was me, who was Billy. But then there was Tom Fridley, who was another one of us. And Tom Fridley, he is related to John Travolta. He's John Travolta's nephew.
Oh.
Then there's
cool.
Frankie Avalon Jr., who's Frankie Avalon's son. And then there's this dude, Ken Daly, who nobody knows. I don't know who he is. I don't know what happened to him. But so there were like a bunch of us. What's interesting about a lot of the people in the movie was that they were aside from a couple people like myself and that Ken Daly, a lot of these people had connections in the industry. They were connected to pretty big known celebrities. And Elizabeth Shue, her brother was actually in Karate Kid. You don't see him. He's in the dojo. He's in the dojo. He's just doing a cameo, but he was a known actor. I mean, he was doing stuff. Later on, he went on to be in Melrose Place. And
dude, that was huge at the time.
Andrew Shue. And so the two, and she hadn't done much before that. That was her big break. And a lot of people, no one will know this. Only I do, because, I know Freddie, I know Israel. Israel grew up with Ralph in New York. He knew him. They went to the same school. They knew each other. They grew up in the same neighborhood. They knew each other. They weren't strangers. Which is interesting, because I think they had even worked together at one point before that, and it had nothing to do with him being cast in the movie. It's just there were these wacky connections that were all through this film. It's just amazing. I could go on and on. There's so much stuff.
Well, yeah, it's like I said, fiction can't even, there's so many little things. It always seems like things wrap back around. Everything comes full circle. Yeah, we just covered the scene where, he gets his ass kicked. They're playing soccer, or at least he gets the one punch this time, but then he gets hauled off. But I love that this scene starts with him going to school. It's fucking Bananarama playing. I was like, yes. I love that song, dude. I am a 80s. I used to have a friend's dad who used to have to burn me CDs, because our CD was just, our computer was a piece of shit. My friend's dad would burn me these CDs, and they were called Collins Crapola Volume 1 and Volume 2, and they were all like, I Wear My Sunglasses at Night, Eddie Money, like a lot of like really good like 80s music. And even now I'm like, fuck you, Jeff. I love Eddie Money. Like, I don't care. But yeah, this is like you said, he gets kind of kicked off of the I guess the tryouts for the soccer team, and but it's really good chemistry between Daniel and Allie right here as well. You can say like he's like oozes like charisma, and there's just something about that where he's just like, it's impossible not to like Daniel as a character. I really I don't know really what other way to put it is, and like he's just a nice kid. Right. I was like, you don't feel like that kid would bully anybody. There's kind of mean bone in his body, and I like that a lot. A really smart choice, I think, at the beginning. Do you remember him when the first?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Colin.
No, you're good. You're good. Go ahead.
I probably shouldn't have interrupted you, because what you were saying was probably more interesting than what I'm saying now. Which is, do you remember him from 8 is Enough?
No, I've never seen that.
8 is Enough was a huge series that was on TV, network TV in the 80s.
Was it a sitcom?
Yeah, no, it was more of a drama. It was a weekly drama about a family that had eight kids.
Okay.
Some very famous people were in it, and I can't think of one of them right now. But he was on that series for, I mean, you got to look it up. I mean, it was a a huge series. And the name sounds familiar. He played like the neighbor or something. And he had that same kind of vulnerable, young, kind of doughy-eyed kid, And what you said reminded me of that. And had you remembered the 8 is Enough character, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's the character right there.
Well, I mean, wasn't Ralph Macchio in like Outsiders? Like
that was the movie he was in prior to Hot Moves. That was me. Sorry, Karate Kid.
No. Well, and there's something also that I loved about seeing Ralph Macchio like as a child actor, where it's like you don't see a lot of them. Macaulay Culkin, Elijah Wood, Corey Haim, Corey Feldman. You don't see a lot of them come out the other end fine. And I was like, dude, he seems like a totally normal. I don't know anything about. Yeah, I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything that might have happened to him. I'm not assuming anything. I don't know. I've never heard anything. But he seems like a totally nice, normal adult individual. And it's like that's a lot of them did not come out of this time period of child acting like that.
He didn't have a huge career after Karate Kid. He did Teachers with Nick Nolte. And then there was Crossroads that Steve Vai did all the guitar playing.
Yes, that's the one I was thinking of. Hell yes.
That was a cool movie because of Steve Vai, in my opinion.
Yeah. And Steve Vai. Yeah, he's in it.
Well,
he's in
it. Right. He was the other guy, the other keyboard, the guitar player. The point I was making was that those movies were okay. They weren't exceptional, and they did okay, I guess. But his career never really, didn't have like a Matthew Broderick kind of situation, or Michael J. Fox. And he just didn't go on that way. And I think that a lot of the, just listening to him throughout the years, I think he had a little bit of trouble removing the stigma of being the Karate Kid. And it's interesting. You wonder why some actors are, you take a look at Harrison Ford, what a career, right? This guy has made characters that you're never going to forget. Yet, he seems to be able to find a new role that you believe him in, even though he was in Star Wars, even though he was, in so many movies that have become very iconic. Yet other actors don't seem to be able to move away from the one role that made them famous or made them popular.
Mm-hmm. I think that's exactly right, of trying to break that mold of like we were talking about with, oh my God, I don't want to say Mr. Miyagi. I'm blanking on his real name.
Pat Morita.
Pat. Yeah, thank you, Pat. Like there was a time where like if you were on television or you were on movies, the two did not mix. Like you might pop up in a guest star, you might cameo into but now it's like television is all the rave. Like, that's like the 90s It miniseries.
Well, that started in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, when the studios held all the power and they would make movies before TV came along. And then when TV came along, some of the actors that went to TV were considered to be not thespians. They weren't the real thing. They were taking you're on a low road. And so there was always the stigma about, well, if you do TV, but if you can do feature films, now that's where it's at. And of course, that's all bullshit now. It's gone. So there may have been a little of that, the jump from TV to theater, but to go from theater to TV was always never looked upon as a move forward.
Right. Yeah. And dude, I have to move on or I can talk about the theater to film to tell. No. It's me. I brought this shit up. Yeah. No, because that is something that's really interesting to me is and never do the worlds meet. And now long form storytelling has, look at the Marvel movies. Like these movies have had to adapt to keep up with that. It's hard to cram a whole entire arc of multiple characters in 2 hours. You even look at the length of movies now; they're getting longer. A 90-minute movie is not a rarity, but a lot less common now. And it's like you see a lot more longer movies because people also, you're paying $18 a ticket for two people.
Yeah, I think that's what's driving that personally.
Yeah, you're like, no, I'm gonna sneak my snacks in from the Dollar Tree and watch this damn movie. So now
we know. We won't tell anyone.
Yeah, right. You're right. You can't hear me with my mic, and it's like. Like walking into the fucking theater. This is where he gets booted from the tryouts. Miyagi comes to fix the sink, and I love how he subtly calls out Daniel, and he's like, "Oh, good thing you didn't hurt your hand." And he's like subtly calling him out, like, "Yeah, you're fucking full of shit, dude. Like, like you wouldn't put your hand up first. You just blocked the ball with your face falling off the bike." Basically, this is kind of where they first meet face to face, but when Miyagi comes and fixes the sink, and kind of right after that, this is where he goes and checks out the Cobra Kai and sees Johnny there. Sorry, I don't want to talk over you if you got something you want to throw in.
Oh no. So we're at when they meet at Cobra Kai. This is kind of like the first. Well, it's not really a showdown, but it's kind of like a crossing of the paths, right?
Right. No, you're totally right, because this is where it's like, I'm coming to do karate to defend myself, and of course, this fucking douchebag's there. And it's like, that's a conflict of like, God damn it. Like, I can't get away from this dude. I love the look on his face, and he's like, fuck. Like, I can't get away from this guy. I really like the scene. He goes to the dojo. He sees Johnny, fucks off, goes to the restaurant with his mom. It's a nice moment with his mom, but dude, he shines here when she walks out. He's like, well, I mean, I think she's great.
Oh, you like
she's
that?
Pretty
Yeah.
cute. She's pretty cute. And I was like, dude, he nails this.
Yeah.
This almost like monologue, this soliloquy.
Right.
And I was like, this is so good.
Yeah.
From such a young actor. Like he is puppy smitten so well. It comes across so great. I absolutely love it. But it's followed by, he has the scene, he's calling Allie beautiful and he's talking to himself. I like how Cobra Kai after that, like subtly just try to murder him by pushing him down this huge ass hill. I was like, dude, you don't know what the fuck. That's like Princess Bride just going down that hill for like 20 minutes.
Well, even before, like when they first see it, Kreese, that's the guy's name, right? Who runs it? Is that right? Kreese?
Yeah.
Kreese, yeah. He's like, why do we do karate? For self-defense. How do that? Strike first, strike hard. That literally is against the definition of defense. Striking first is attack. That's not defense. And then we get it again here when he attacks on the bike. Like, this is why I'm like, if you think that Daniel's the bad guy, get fucked. Like I can understand there's some arguments, but this is clear. This is beyond bullying. This is like attempted murder almost.
Yeah. Well, and I love the whole thing of what Jeff was talking about with what they wanted in that Bruce Lee kind of like, I'm a huge fan of Bruce Lee and honestly more of like his martial arts career than his films. I mean, I like his films, but his philosophy and the Jeet Kune Do and stuff, like that's all fascinating to me. What a brilliant guy. And his whole thing was if you pick a fight, you're automatically like, once you throw that, you're leaving yourself open. He's like, if you're on the defense, you're going to be good. And I was like, I like that so much about like, if you go looking for a fight, you're probably going to lose because this person is defending themselves. I was like, it's so interesting. His whole philosophy behind martial arts. It's amazing, man.
Well, what you may not know is Pat Johnson, the name Pat Johnson. He was you should, because he's in the movie. He was the tournament director, the guy that's
okay.
But his actual job was to train everybody in that movie how to do their karate.
Nice.
He's like a 5-time.
Right. He did like fight choreography, right?
No, he's more than that. I mean, the guy is a major, like 5-6-time black belt world champion. Look up Pat Johnson, and his career is ridiculous.
I could be mistaken, but I think I was reading about him earlier. It was someone who did the fight choreography, and apparently they trained under Chuck Norris.
That was him.
Is that him?
Yeah.
That was
nice.
Him. Yeah.
Because you get a look when you're looking at that guy, there's sometimes when you see this, like when you see refs in like the Rocky movie, you're like, no, that guy's a real ref. Like you can tell, like he not acting, it's like there's something about his mannerisms.
He was literally, I met him on the first day. And when we did we didn't even talk about that. We did we did a meet and greet for the cast at Jerry Weintraub's house. And that was the first time I got my call to meet everybody. And so, Ralph was there and Pat Morita, everybody was there, and we were all in a room. And that's when Pat Johnson was there, and I met him for the first time. And they said, well, let's see a demonstration what you guys have been working on. And so they did a karate little demo thing, and it was clear that they were at that point we didn't know, but this guy Pat Johnson was training them, and I don't think he was supposed to be in the movie originally, but they put him in during the tournament scenes because it looked so legit.
Yeah. Because there's people, like I said, in that, and you're looking at them, you're like, you look like you really actually belong in the background here. Like, you don't seem like, I got
to give the producers a lot of credit. For a Hollywood movie based on Rocky, they really went out of their way to bring realism and to do their homework when it came to the karate, and it came to some of the just the way the karate people, the ones that were supposedly on the teaching side were talking about it and how they acted. They took their time with that. I remember when I met the cast that they had already been working, Billy Zabka, Ralph, and a couple of the Tony O'Dell and Rob and a couple of the other guys. They were already in training. They had been working on karate for about 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And so they had absolutely zero knowledge of how to do. Neither did Ralph, or none of them had any karate history. And by the time we got to meet them, the cast, by that time that meant the reason why that date was important was because that's when filming was going to start, and all those dudes were like impressive. We didn't know. We were like, holy crap, these guys know karate. I mean, they seem to.
That's what I like to read about Pat Morita. He's like, I don't fucking know how to do karate. I don't know any of this shit. And
fortunately, he didn't have to do a whole lot.
Right, yeah. And that speaks to his character of like, this dude hardly has one scene where he's really kind of fighting, and you just like, that's a bad motherfucker, dude. And it's like you see Vader fight one time with a lightsaber in A New Hope, but you're like, that's a bad motherfucker. Like immediately, I love
that's
that.
That's a good example of less is more for that character.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Going back to the story.
Sorry.
I'm just going to throw in a segue for us. I just don't want to keep you here for 5 hours. I'm sorry, dude.
I don't mind.
Yeah. But yeah, what I was going to say is right after that bike scene, which feels like it's straight out of Stranger Things.
Yes, 100%.
Stranger Things
dude.
loves doing shit like that. Look, and that's just a callback to 80s.
The skeleton scene you're talking about?
No, the motorbike throwing them off the when he falls down.
Oh, that. Yeah.
But the scene after that is exactly what I was talking about earlier, where he blames his problems on the bike. I hate this bike. Tries to throw it away. His mother sees him. He sort of like tries to hide it, even though she's all like, "Oh, tell me, blah blah." Like that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the realistic. Yeah. Three-dimensionalness and believability of a kid suffering through bullying, because he also acts throughout the whole thing like he doesn't think of himself like, oh, I'm the nerdy kid. Like when he talks like when he's hitting on girls and acting with friends, he's trying to be
he's
cool.
A smooth operator,
cool. And even the situation, he doesn't want to seem like he's weak, which is so realistic. And I know, like for me, when I got picked on when I was a little kid, that's how I was like too. And so I fucking love this scene.
You got to add, Matt. You got to add that extra dimension, which was another shout out to writers on this, where the dimension of him not having a father figure to be able to talk to about these problems when he was throwing the bike away, and his mom came to him. He didn't want his mom's sympathy or empathy at that time. Not that he didn't want it; he just didn't want it at that moment. It would have been a good moment if he had a father, and he didn't. And I think that's why the relationship between him and Pat Morita, or Pat's character, was so strong. And what it wasn't about karate. It was just about having that father figure in his life at that time.
Well, when you look at both of them, we're like, it's literally two Lego like puzzle pieces of like kid without a father without a kid, and it locks like perfectly. Right. It's so, and I think this is actually might be my favorite scene in this movie, where he's arguing with his mom. And he's like, "Did you ever ask me how I felt before we moved out here?" And it's like, Machio is extremely good here. I was like, this is fan-fucking-tastic. And I was like, I know there are issues with this movie. This is not one of them. And I was like, this is really, really, really good. This is.
Yeah, well, that's where the drama is, man. I mean, we're there for the fight scenes, but it's the drama that gets you
and
there.
It transcends 70s, 80s, 90s, aughts, 2010, 2020. Like that is that transcends time, that conversation of, having to pick up and move and go here and go there. And it's like, oh my God, like I really thought he knocked it out of the park. And like what you said, you don't want your mom running to your mommy like type thing. You want, if you're going to talk,
it's the opposite.
Right. You want your dad to be like, so when you throw a punch, you wrap your thumb, don't tuck it, and it's like, you kind of, that's the way my dad was,
Right.
But this is where Miyagi kind of steps in. This is where he takes this opportunity. He fixes Daniel's bike, kind of shows him the ways of the Force. Basically, this is like Yoda and Anna. This is like, I'm going to make, Lucasfilm is paying me by the dollar to make Star Wars references. But no, this is like him on Dagobah. I like this of him trimming the tree, and he's like, clear your mind, only see the tree. He's like, what if I don't do it right? He's like, if it's in your mind, it's a correct picture. And I was like, God damn, I love that.
Well, you bring up George, you bring up Star Wars. I mean, with the chopsticks, it's very Obi-Wan.
Yes,
So
it's very put the helmet on and block the phaser thing.
Right. It's the Force, man, and that's exactly what they're. I mean, it's not that they're trying to mirror Star Wars values here. It's it's very common in storytelling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, being a part of something bigger than yourself and letting go of doubts, letting go of, letting go of that confidence and just doing it and just get out of your own way and do it. And I love that. There's so many creative people that are like that, of like, get up, get out of your own way, turn off the TV, put your phone down and go fucking do it. And it's like, I love that mentality. It's addictive. But yeah, this is a great scene between them. As September turns into October, the relationship between the two of these guys grow. Miyagi kind of senses, what's going on with Daniel's social problems at school. And he makes him the shower costume. I laughed my ass off at that, dude. That is that is humor that translates so well, almost 40 years later. I was like, it translates amazingly. That is like something you'd see on like Bob's Burgers or like New Girl. That is that kind of humor I absolutely adore. I think it's so great.
I don't know if you caught this. I think I have a clip of it somewhere, but I'm wearing a caveman outfit.
Oh shit! Really?
And
what?
And I get an egg splattered on my head in front of Daniel.
I'm looking for you. I'm looking right now.
I'm looking for it too.
It's when the chicken comes out. The guy in the chicken costume, he comes out and he's throwing eggs on people. I'm the guy that gets eggs splattered on my head, and Daniel points his finger, and then he gets an egg on him.
So what was your acting process like when you had to get an egg on your face? Literally?
It's funny you should ask that, because there were other scenes that were supposed to be accompanying that day. And so it was a good day. Right. It was supposed to be a good day for me and my gang. And I showed up to my set, showed up to my dressing room, and there was I didn't know what I was going to be at the Halloween costume, the Halloween party. And it turned out they had a caveman outfit for me. So I knew I was going to be a caveman at that point. It wasn't in the script. It was just, here's the party. And there was a scene, I mentioned this earlier, there was a scene of all of us outside the party, passing a joint around with Daniel. And they cut it. They didn't like it or something. It didn't, I think they didn't want it to, because of Johnny's, scene with it in the bathroom. I think they, which looking back, it was kind of hokey, but they were trying to associate smoking pot with the bad guys.
Right.
And they didn't. Yeah. And even though that was a bad precedent, it's not true. It's come on, let's be honest.
I can see where they're coming from though. Like especially it's the 80s. They want to also it's trying to be family friendly.
They're trying to delineate. I totally get it. It's just, it was just another cut scene for me. So I was pissed. But
Well, and I love that he can have a hard liquor drink with Pat Morita, but they're like, no, you don't smoke a joint though.
No smoky.
Oh man,
no smoky for you.
We could get into the bad parenting in this movie from like karate teachers pretty much physically assaulting their kids to underage drinking to allowing a minor to drive a car without a license. Like
it's the 80s, dude.
But that's what coming of age movies are all about,
man.
I was born in 1990, and I was the youngest of four. And by the time I came around, my parents are like, "Just don't get arrested. To go fucking do it." And I'm like, "Cool, awesome." I'd hop in a car and drive to a friend's house for like 14, 15, no big deal, And it was like, it wasn't,
the house in which he picks Allie up. Because you brought up, your parents were like, "Hey, just don't get in trouble or nothing." Do you know how many times the cops came to that house for a party I was at that house?
Oh, nice.
That was Mike
Legit?
Baruch.
Wow.
That is a dude I went to high school with. That's his house, his parents' house.
So you live pretty locally to it, it sounds like.
Oh my God. That was the weirdest thing about this whole movie. There was nothing that was filmed that wasn't down the street from me. The high school, which was a junior high, which was Hughes Junior High, which was literally a mile from my house. Leo Carrillo Beach was just, you take Mulholland and 20 minutes you're at the beach. The house in which he picked Allie up for his date was Mike Baruch, the guy I went to high school with. That was his house. I've been in that house many times, and always for like, I was never there and I was never sober at that house.
Yeah, right. You're like, I threw up in this room. I threw up in that room.
I remember getting the call sheet that day and going, I know that address. I was like, holy shit, we're going to Mike's house? That's where it's filmed? But
That's so
it was
cool.
like another weird thing. And
That's so cool.
it's just so funny.
I've made an observation that I think would be a remiss to not mention. So listeners of Midnight Double Feature will know that last year for October, we changed the name of the podcast to Midnight Spooky Feature as each feature presentation was basically like a horror movie. But a large portion of this movie takes place in Halloween. So technically, this is a Midnight Spooky Feature that we did not plan for.
I enjoy that because I was like, oh man, I was like, yeah, it's Halloween and stuff. It's like because this scene is synonymous with like Johnny and the Cobra Kai and the skeleton outfits. It's like, dude, you can't. This is one of those scenes you can't not.
Very famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is really where we're at, where he ruins the joint, which I absolutely fucking loved. That was, and seeing him run out as like the fucking shower curtain. This chase got to commences. The gang jump him. They beat the shit out of him. Not before Miyagi steps in and lays down the fucking law. I like where he beats the shit out of him. And he wakes up and he's like, "Where's Spider-Man?" And I laughed out loud. I was like, "Oh, that's so good, dude." I just pictured Pat Morita running around in like a Spider-Man costume. The friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, like, dude, that oh my god. But yeah, it's great because again, it's the only time you see him raise a hand and he drops like 5 people a third his age. Like, I was like, oh, that's
right.
And I loved, and it's also at a time when you took, because Pat Morita didn't die till 2005 or something. Yeah. Well, because they said that a lot of his later movies got delayed so much that like 5 or 7 movies came out long after he had died. Like his last movie came out in like 2014, like 7 to 9 years after he died. And it's so funny, like they make him so old in this movie. I'm like, dude, what is he, like 60? Like that's not a.
He was born in 1932, so.
Yeah, what is that? 84. So yeah, he's not that old. And that. Well, that's like I love Frasier. I love that show. I watched it growing up. But like Frasier's dad in that show, like Kelsey Grammer is older than that guy ever was in the show. He's several years older.
I didn't know that.
Years older.
Way.
Like,
was he?
Well, because the actor's name is John Mahoney, and his hair went white a lot earlier, But no, Kelsey Grammer is like a few years or several years older.
Dude, that makes sense because in that show Frasier, Kelsey Grammer. He's not looking young,
he's like 40,
right?
38,
and then his dad, like by that point, Frasier's got like the wrinkles in his head going and stuff. Like, and you know what? I always gave him a pass because I'm like, oh, he's like a smart, intellectual character. So apparently, everyone who's smart looks old.
He's very stoic,
according to my stupid brain. But then, like, yeah, you're right. You put it next to his dad. Like, they could be fucking brothers or cousins or some shit. That's so funny.
I have looked this same way for probably 8 or 9 years, and I can't tell you how many people are like, how old are you? I'm like, I'm 23. Like, fuck, I thought you were like 34. I was like, thanks, dude. That's great. I appreciate that. Like, life just fucked me. I don't know what to tell you.
Next episode, Midnight Double Feature, by the way.
Yeah, we're covering all of Frasier in one episode. But yeah, this is, he kind of wakes up. He heals Daniel's wounds. He gives him this tea. He wounds, and he admits that he knows karate and agrees to go to the Cobra Kai dojo with Daniel's son to speak with their teacher. Another huge, I can't tell you how many people. I worked in a restaurant for a long time. Anybody named Daniel would be like, Daniel's son, like table 4 needs more bread. Like people do that all the time, dude. It's so.
That's not annoying.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh my God. My first name's Colin Farrell. I'm like, dude, come on. Like get a fucking, like grow up, man. But yeah, I like this whole scene because you can see Miyagi kind of like, no, I don't want to get involved. I just, he seems like a man that doesn't really want to get involved unless somebody is about to get hurt. He's like, this is about pride. This is about this. I don't really want to get involved.
That's in line with how he's teaching him self-defense. It's
right.
It's not to be a weapon of, to cause harm. It's supposed to be a protector, a way to protect yourself.
It's so funny you two say that because I took it completely different and I realizing I took it the completely wrong way. You guys are coming from a character perspective, which makes sense. I took it from how I would be in that situation, which would be oh, I just beat the shit out of a couple of teenagers. Now I'm going to go back.
I got to get out of here.
They're probably going to fucking arrest my ass. Again, I'm noticing a common theme of this episode is that I'm a little bitch who won't break any rules.
Matt, you do realize this is not a documentary.
Yeah. No, yeah. But I'm thinking that's why he doesn't want to get involved. But no, it makes sense. His character's all like, don't strike first, defensive.
Right. Well, and I think his whole philosophy is that the best offense is a good defense, like unless they're actively at my door, trying to come after me. But, but that's the thing. I think he soon realizes this is what's happening for this kid.
Yeah.
If I don't get involved, this is what's going to happen. Like, and I can't, it's the only thing for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. Like if I don't do anything, it's going to happen. So I might as well get involved and at least maybe not physically do it myself. But, I like the hesitancy.
There's another layer to it that you may not have mentioned, may not have realized, is that, when Pat's character gets involved and he starts to teach him wax on, wax off and all that, and we get toward the tournament, him participating in Daniel's evolution is just as important to Mr. Miyagi in his evolution. And so they're symbiotic in that sense. And so it goes beyond just me feeling bad for this kid and wanting to help out to it gives him a purpose in life that's greater than his own. And he can,
right.
And that's why it's such a brilliant relationship between the two of them. It's not just the obvious one, which is good in itself. It's got that underlying layer that, Mr. Miyagi actually needs this.
Yeah, that's a great observation in the way of like almost like Shawshank with like Andy Dufresne and Tommy of like trying to teach Tommy how to get his GED and stuff. And he's like, I have to do this. Like, this is almost like a project for me, but it's also me in my own way. Like I need to do something because you can tell he kind of does almost feel like fucking Obi-Wan or like Yoda, like hiding out. Yeah. Like I have secluded myself away and I'm not going to do anything or get married or have kids. I'm just going to have this little, work here. And I was like, that's so awesome. Obviously he's made some wise investments because his house is fucking amazing. I was like, how the hell?
He hasn't spent any money.
Yeah.
Other than that, he probably doesn't have.
It's got all them cars too.
Yeah, the cars.
Yeah. That's a great observation between them. Is like it's very much so one hand. Yeah, hands exchanging things. Like I need experience, but also you just to live again, to have that second run. I don't have any kids. I have several nieces and nephews. But there's something about when you go and something that you've done 1,000 times, you take that kid and you kind of get to symbiotically, vicariously live that again. I think that's such a great point, what you brought out. That's really, really good. This is where, this is where they go to the Cobra Kai. I love the guy with his arm in the sling. And I was like, dude, just call it a fucking day, man. Like, just call it a fucking day. Just, you know what? You can go home. That's me though. This guy, the dojo master, hell no.
No mercy.
Right, exactly. He breaks his other arm and he's like, you're still doing it. Fucking get in there.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, the dojo, there's all these big words thrown around. There's challenges. Basically, at the end of the day, the agreement is made where fuck off. Quit fucking with this kid. Give him 2 months. I was like, we'll do this at the tournament, but they're ready to throw down right there with Johnny Lawrence and oh my God, I keep wanting to say, Daniel Caruso. Jesus. It's so hard to, because I've always known him as Ralph Macchio, that I'm like David Caruso. And I'm like, wait, no.
It's Lil Russo.
David Caruso is...
I think you're talking about a different movie.
Dude, he's the redheaded guy in the CSI shit and like First Blood. Like,
right.
David Caruso.
That's right.
Totally different.
Daniel Caruso. He's an actor.
Yeah, that's totally fucking different. Like King of New York and shit. Like that guy's in a lot of stuff. But yeah.
Maybe you meant Daniel Defoe. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Michael Faustino from Married with Children. That's what I meant. But no, I like this a lot with this whole thing of this guy is, is a, oh my God, I'm dropping the Cobra Kai dojo. Kessler? Kreese. Thank you.
He's like a fucking James Bond villain in this. He's like, aha, what if we do this? And I like the way you go. It's like, whoa, dude, like you are talking about fucking children here. I love how fucking evil he is. He's the fucking best, man.
I think there is a bit of like two-dimensionalness to that, but at the same time, when you're that insecure of like getting in someone's face and like, let's go right now, you're like, that speaks louder than anything. The fact that Miyagi is just in there looking at him like, no, I'm good. We can do this later. Like, it's not I don't need to prove anything to you. I know what I am. Like, I don't need to impress a bunch of fucking 15-year-olds in this class. Like, I'm fucking motherfucking Pat Morita. Like, I don't need to impress myself by kicking your ass.
His motivation is not the same.
Right. Right. Exactly. I like that. There's a huge insecurity in that of the people who are like, we just show no mercy and just hit them just to say fuck it, no mercy. And it's like, well, no, that's kind of fucking crazy, but okay. Like Matt said, this scene is just insanity of him being like, yeah, I heard you jumped a couple of my students. And he's like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? It's like,
They threw him off a fucking bike. Like, he did a bunch of shit. But something I want to highlight though, I think, to defend like the two-dimensionalist statements I said before. Sorry, not defend, but devil's advocate. By having a character like Kreese be as evil and one-sided and James Bond villain-esque, by that, it actually allows characters such as Johnny to have more depth to them. So, like in this earlier scene, something we didn't touch on is while the skeletons are beating him up, like one of them is like, they've had enough. Stop it. He's like, no mercy, rah rah. That's because he's following the teachings of his master, Kreese, who's probably like his father figure. And later on, towards the very end, like when they get into the tournament, like Kreese just he turns up the evilness up more notches, when he's like, take him out of commission. And then there's a thing. And then like you start seeing the other side to Cobra Kai, where it's like, no, these kids aren't fucking evil bullies. They're kind of following the example, just a bad example, like this one bad influence, which like, you can take back to like war stories of like, soldiers are just following orders, that type of thing.
Well, they're impressionable and they're not sure what is right yet. They're
Exactly. And I wonder if like, I haven't seen Cobra Kai, but I imagine if you're trying to make Johnny a sympathetic character, that could be one of the like ways to go. You could be like, look, I don't show mercy, I don't do that, but like that's how I was taught by a figure of authority.
Yeah, but he redeems himself somewhat at the very end when he shakes his hand and says, "You're all right, Lulu." So, so they know right from wrong. They're confused about whether or not they should be, following orders or not.
Yeah. It's like the only one that doesn't really know right from wrong is Kreese. And I haven't seen Karate Kid 2. I have seen some scenes, and from my understanding, it starts off with after the competition, where I think Kreese is actually harassing Johnny for losing, and then he tries to pick a fight with Miyagi and loses in like the car park or something afterwards. And like he actually, like I think he breaks a trophy or something or something. Basically, he's evil motherfucker still afterwards.
Yeah.
Which is like, again, cool. Like by having someone that two-dimensional evil, and like, remember, he's not a main character. He's like supporting cast. It allows a character like Johnny to have all these extra layers as well.
Yeah.
So like, it's a great trade-off because it creates better character moments.
Well, and there's something exactly like what you're talking about where Miyagi literally says there are no bad students, there are bad teachers. He was like, like some people are just going to be, you can teach them all day long, but there are going to be some people who are just like, no, that's not right. This is this and this is that and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to say no one's unteachable, but some people are much harder to teach than, like my girlfriend has been a teacher for several years and she's like, no one's unteachable, but some people it's like breaking in a Bronco, dude. It's so much harder than some of them. But I like what he says of like, those kids are just following exactly what this guy is teaching them to do. And maybe morally, they're kind of in that area of like, I don't think this is right, but at the same time, an adult is telling me to do
but
it.
Also there's peer pressure too,
yes, everybody else is doing it. Yeah,
totally.
Exactly.
100%, dude. This is pretty much where we go back to the we go back to Miyagi's. I love this truck, dude. That truck that he's got.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good, man. I love his car selection. It's amazing. They go back to Miyagi's, and this is where we kind of get this famous, this is where the training starts. We get the famous wax on, wax off bit. How many times? If I had $1 for every time I heard this in my fucking life, man. Like this is, I knew this more than in Sweet the Leg Johnny. Like, oh my God, I can't tell you how many of these lines that I've heard, but wax on, wax off is absolutely the one that I've heard through my whole life, and this whole training thing at first, it is kind of funny because when you're watching it, I know as a 30-year-old man watching this now, I'm like, well, yeah, there's obviously some kind of hidden meaning to like what this kid is doing. There's either teaching him patience or like some kind of balance. But I know 10-year-old me would have been like, this guy's fucking doing child labor over here, dude. This is bullshit.
Like, I was actually thinking, I think the way Miyagi actually affords all these cars and all that is because he saves so much money on car wash, gardener, for cutting his trees, waxing his floors. He doesn't need a handyman, nothing, man. He saves so much money, and he's probably got his own little dojo of little
I think though, if you want to get, if you want to get a little more zen about it, the point is that there's value in things that you aren't always, that don't present themselves as they are. And some of his teachings are in line with the fact that, with the fact that you can't just assume you're not learning something because it looks like one thing and it's something else, So there's I don't know. There's some really deep philosophy with that, and it works. I mean, it's very Hollywoodized in the sense that they drag it on for a bit, but it's a very useful metaphor for lessons in life.
Well, there's a huge payoff later. Like, I think we're a bit far away from it to talk about too much now, but the payoff of all these useless tasks he's done, and he finds that he was learning karate all along. That payoff is so massive, is like it makes it all, it's so rewarding to see as a viewer, which I think is great. I do want to ask a question more so from your perspective, Jeff, because you were like around back then. Sorry, I'm making you sound so much older than you are. I'm sorry, but
like, get my cane.
So, I'm just curious. I'm trying to look at it from like another light. All these scenes of him doing all these weird things of like, painting the fence and wax on, wax off, all that stuff. At the time, was that do you think that was meant to be portrayed as comedic moments back then? Or is it just sort of like how I'm seeing it now? It's like, what's this weird old guy up to? Is he just being kooky?
No, not at all. To answer my opinion is that first of all, I never considered it to be comedic, and it had, I could see where you might be able to say now that it's kind of funny, but at the time, I think it was meant to illustrate exactly what I said a minute ago. It was this, learning how to defend yourself and learning to be, let's face it, Daniel was growing up, and in order to do that, life throws things at you that don't look like lessons, but they are in the end. And that's all that I think the takeaway is on that. And it just happened to work so beautifully for the way the film was written. The payoff is great.
I just find it interesting from the perspective of this movie has been with me for a long part of my life. I don't remember my first time watching it. So it's just like Star Wars, Luke, I'm your father. I'm also getting paid residual checks from Disney. So yeah. But I know what's coming. I know why he's doing wax on, wax off. But I'm just trying to imagine my first time watching this movie in a theater. As an audience member, I'm like, where is this going? Like, why?
I knew immediately.
Yeah, you did. Because you would have known the script, right? Or you just got it from context.
I got it. I'm not, I'm not trying to say that somehow I'm more.
Oh no, of course not.
I'm smarter or something. I didn't look at that as some weird comedic relief thing. I saw it immediately like, okay, this is a tool. Okay, I get it.
No, that's good. That's
in
good.
fact, I wish it wasn't drawn out as long as they did it, because it seemed to go on too long.
That's why I was thinking that, because it is like, it feels like such a large chunk of the movie. And like, it's great that all the stuff comes back, and which is good writing, I think. But it's like, I just imagine if it was my first time watching it, I'd be like, why is half the movie of him painting a fence and stuff? You know?
Yeah.
I imagine that's what I might have thought if I was my age now watching it back then. But watching it now, I'm like, oh, this is great because I know what it's leading to.
True, but I agree with you in the sense that I think it went. My opinion is, I just think it went on too long. I think we got it. We figured it out. Paint the fence. Well, I mean, we get it. We know what's happening. We don't need to see 8 scenes of this. You know, but it did create something that was unexpected, I think, for Daniel's character, for Ralph's character, Daniel LaRusso, and that is it created an angst and a little bit of a frustration that built up.
Yeah, it's
he kicked the tires and he slammed the doors. Like, what the fuck am I doing here? This is I'm wasting my summer on this guy. I'm going to get my ass kicked, and all I can do is paint a fence. You know, that kind of shit. And so I think that created a little bit more, movie drama that it just helped us. Through that. I don't think there was anything deep there. I think it just created that natural response that a kid would have to that, No, and again, I think we have to go back. We got to go back to Star Wars, man. I mean, Pat Morita's character was the ultimate Obi-Wan Kenobi, man. Yeah. I mean, he or Yoda. I mean, he was Obi-Wan. He's probably closer to that. He was the guy that, didn't have to lift very heavy objects to do great things,
Exactly.
And it's the same character. It's just karate.
Right. Yeah. No, I think exactly what you said. If it does, after a while, you're sitting there and you're like, dude, how fucking long is this dude? Is he cleaning the gutter snacks? Is he paving the driveway? Like,
it got a little obnoxious.
Yeah. Yes, because it's also like the movie is 2 hours long, and you're like, but I knew everybody by the 12-minute mark. So what the hell is going on?
I know.
Colin, can I bring something up here? It's 2 hours long with credits. It's 2 hours long with credits. You keep saying 2 hours long. It's so like
it's like 207 with credits, dude.
You have to understand. They put too much of the wax on and wax off. They could have cut some of that and put more my scenes back in.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go. Give us the Jeff cut.
Some real value.
Give us the Jeff cut.
Real value.
Right.
Where's the Billy cut?
Well, I think what I'm going to do is I think pretty much we're at the halfway point here. Usually at around the halfway point, we like to take a break.
Someone order a pizza?
Yeah, dude, exactly. I got Chinese food waiting out there. No, I'm just kidding. No, we go refill our drinks, take a break, go use the restroom. Is that all right with you guys? You guys cool with that?
Yeah.
I'm here for the ride, man.
I could use the bathroom real bad, so...
Hell yeah. Dude.
Wait, are we still recording? Are we still on?
No, yeah, we're still recording. I'll do, guys, we'll be right back with the second half of Karate Kid. Don't go anywhere.
G'day gang, it's Matt from Midnight Double Feature, and it's time for a commercial break. I know, exciting, right? Probably favorite part of the episode, I'm sure. If you want to support the show, please consider giving us a 5-star review on iTunes to help us rank up in the charts and expose us to more potential listeners. Also, to make sure you're not missing out or anything, please consider following us on social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the works. And if you want to get to know us more personally and our community, join our Facebook community group, where we post memes, polls, trailers, and more. And you can get in all the fun with the MDF game. If you want to be a super fan and show the world, why not pick up a t-shirt or a coffee mug at our store, midnightdoublefeature.com. And if you want even more content, be sure to check out our Breaking Bad podcast, Bad Crystal. And if you want even more content than that, you can join the Green Room by signing up for our Patreon for access to bonus feed episodes, discount on merchandise, and more. And if you want even more content, geez, dude, calm down. That's like a lot as it is. You're getting a bit of a stalker now. Don't get too greedy. Damn. There's always older episodes you can check out. Seriously, dude, just dial it back a bit. Seriously. Wow. Anyways, back to the episode.
What's going on, motherfuckers? Welcome back to the Karate Kid. Jumping back at you with part 2. Me and Matt Vella and our special guest, Jeffrey Bryan. We're really happy to be jumping in. We are freshly squeezed, as we like to say, because we are, got our drinks filled. We got our bladders empty. Super excited to be jumping back into the second part of this. Yeah, TMI. That's dude, it's a theme in our fucking podcast now, Freshly Squeezed. But I love this scene of him coming to her house, and he meets the parents. He kicks the brick and drops it, but then when they get into the car, she's like, "Oh, don't worry, it's just something we got to do." And I was like, "Oh my god, I have had that happen to me so many times on dates and shit. Like, yeah, you just got to push it. You gotta push it, or like something." When you get in, don't touch the driver's side, don't touch the passenger side and knob. It'll fucking fall off.
It was just another example of making him look vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely loved it because, his mom, she doesn't care. She's like, well, I mean, what's your fucking business? This is what I drive. She's an adult about it, but you can feel the embarrassment through him of him be like, man, come on, man.
Totally.
To a kid that matters,
Yeah, you can relate to that. Anyone can relate to that.
Dude, yeah, especially the pieces of shit that I have driven before. My first car in like 2008 was a 1990 Chevy Celebrity. And I was like, Jesus, no, that was a Dodge. Wow. It was a Dodge Dynasty. Sorry. That fucking thing. Good God.
Such a dynasty.
Yeah, dude. And then after that, it was a 1988 Chevy Celebrity. And I was like, good Lord, man. And I had a thing for like late 80s, early 90s sedans.
Weirdly named cars.
Dude, yeah. It was really weird. But yeah, this is a great kind of, you are seeing the contrast in their lives right here between Allie and Daniel. This is great.
Well, I have to comment on that.
Yeah.
Now I'm from LA, and this film was actually was shot in my neighborhood. So, I mean, I'm really close. When they said things, Reseda is on the other side of the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
That was a stretch. I mean, yes, literally there is a railroad that separates, not Reseda, but there is one. Okay. If you were from LA, you'd understand. There's the Santa Monica Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
And north of that is the San Fernando Valley where this takes place.
Mm-hmm.
Reseda is one of the little cities inside the valley.
Okay.
And south, right when you get into the valley, you've got Ventura Boulevard. And Ventura Boulevard is very famous. Everyone knows it. Ventura Boulevard is just the main drag that runs through the valley. And it's relatively affluent throughout the valley. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, I think it's because whatever. It just is. I don't know why.
Sure. And
it is true that Reseda was not an expensive place to live with regard to Encino, which was south of that railroad track.
Right.
But they really made a deal about it. I mean, I knew a lot of kids that went to Reseda High. I wouldn't call them poor.
Yeah. Like, I mean, is it so much that he's just like working class? Like I know plenty of people who you would consider working class poor, where it was like not even really poor, but like you got to work for a living, and like,
I think they were trying to illustrate that he's a kid from the mean streets of Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
And so, now he's from the mean streets of Reseda.
Yeah. I was like, are you trying to get like seedy Reseda? Is that what you're trying to like to spit on the words there?
What's funny about this though? Zoom ahead 30-something years and Reseda's pretty seedy right now.
Yeah. That's what I was like, I'm surprised there wasn't some joke in there. Seedy, I was like, dude, it's right there.
It was like a prophecy.
As foretold in the book of Karate Kid.
Exactly.
I love this. I love this date that they go on though. Riding the go, man. This was such some shit I do when I was 4. I'm 30. I'll do this shit now. Putt, go karts. Like this is I don't want to go somewhere and eat dinner and be real quiet and formal and shit. It's like, no, I want to go drink a beer and play mini golf. Like that's my kind of shit. That's what I have fun with.
I read an interview with one of the creators of the Cobra Kai series. And they were saying that this was their favorite scene in the film. Mm-hmm. And what they did is apparently one of the earlier episodes of season 1, they actually recreated this. Almost not shot for shot, but using a song that's happened shortly, like it's still in the movie, but shortly after.
Oh, cool!
Yeah, just because they love this scene so much. So
you're talking about the amusement park scene, the miniature.
I think so.
Yeah. I don't think that place is there anymore. But funny little sidebar. It's totally unrelated, but it's kind of interesting to me. So during the shooting of that, I wasn't there. Didn't need to be. And, but I'm in a band, I'm in a different bands, of course, Survivor, but I'm in other things. And I'm in a band with a friend of mine, Mark, who is also one of the drummers that plays for Great White now. And
cool.
So we're in another band together that we play in now. Yeah. And he found out I was in Karate Kid, and he says, "Hey, man, I was in that scene." I'm like, "What?"
No shit.
Yeah. He was an extra in the parking lot that they hired for the day.
No way.
And he thought it was an after-school special.
Yeah, about kicking ass. But it's another one of those things where, like, your life, there's all these little, like, these twinkles.
I
and
know
stuff.
they just keep flying out of the sky. There's so many. I haven't got to all of them. It's okay, but we don't need to. I'm just saying, there's just, as you bring these scenes up, they're sparking memories. And I just remembered I was talking to Mark about this the other day, because he loves to tell me, "I was in an after school special with you." I'm like, yeah.
Like it's a fucking PSA or something. Like, no.
He didn't know what it was. They hired a couple they hire extras, day players.
Yeah.
And they don't tell him what it's, he didn't even know the name of the movie, but he didn't know this for years and years and years. And then it was just a funny story. It's funny for me because it's personal.
No, yeah.
But,
I was an extra a couple of times, and like student short films, nothing worth even mentioning. But I can remember them being like, "Yeah, so the story is this and this," and I was like, "Do I have any lines?" And they were like, "No." I was like, "I don't care." I was like, "Just tell me what I should do," and like point to me.
Where do
And
I
like,
stand?
I was in a laundromat, like doing laundry, and like, shit like that. I was like, I don't fucking need a script. If I don't need a script, don't tell me. I don't care. I just want to come here and have fun.
My character's motivation is laundry.
Yeah, that I'm currently going commando.
I wonder if it's an 80s thing, because the movie I was in prior to Karate Kid was Hot Moves, and we had almost the identical scene.
Really?
There's a scene of us, the guys, me and my guys, and the girls that we had that night, went to a miniature golf amusement park place, and had almost the same identical scene. Playing miniature golf and foosball and shit, and it's kind of weird. I guess that was just an 80s thing to do.
That's popular here still. Like, oh my god.
But you're right. In movies, especially from the 80s, you would get like, whenever the kid's like, "Hey, let's go have fun," they would go to the arcade.
Yeah.
They'd go to the theme park. They'd go there. And sure, arcades, like video games, like leaving your house to play video games, not so popular now.
No.
But putt-putt's still around.
Yeah, that's true.
Around. Nowadays, nowadays, if like there's a group of kids going out to go somewhere, I don't know. It's like they don't write those scenes anymore.
They used to go to malls. That got popular in the 90s, malls.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well,
I'm thinking nowadays, like if you're writing a coming of age film or whatever, there's never those scenes anymore. I wonder why. It's not unrealistic to do that. Kids still go shopping centers.
We would always just go to a friend's house.
Maybe because it's been done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and there was, we would just go to a friend's garage and smoke a bunch of weed, and that was it. It wasn't, that wasn't like we didn't go to the mall and walk around like, why the fuck do I want to go to the mall? Like my friends are very antisocial though.
I actually went to the mall to smoke weed.
Yeah, okay, there you go. You had to meet your guy there. My guy works at Hot Topic. Give me a sec.
We'd meet the, whatever, and then we'd find an area in the parking lot because it was so massive. You'd get lost back there and find a little area behind the building where you could toke up.
Yeah. But I like this scene a lot. I like you get a very nice vibe from both of them. They have a good chemistry. It's nice. They make this date. I like this, again, we talked about the scene with his mom, big 80s montage. I love an 80s montage. But I also, it's what comes up must come down, right? Right when things are like, dude, we're having a good time. There's the guy in the Corvette, and then the next car is Johnny, and you're like, Jesus, dude, like you feel bad for Daniel because he can't get out from under the shadow of association of even with this person. It's like
nor can the viewer.
Yeah, exactly. By vicariously, it's like you feel like wherever he goes.
That's the point. Yeah.
Whatever direction you step a foot in, it's like if he tried to go get a part-time job, Johnny's dad would own the grocery store or something.
It's kind of like Chucky.
Yeah, dude. Funnily enough, Matt and I are like, that's the only, when Matt and I do features, we've covered the first two, and I think we're looking at covering the third one too. That's so weird. But yeah, I like this. I like this a lot. Where it's a small victory and then another setback. A small victory, a small. There's
Right.
always a little bit of a setback there. Miyagi's training picks back up. He's sanding the floors. He's painting fences. He's painting the house. I love that he catches the fly and he's like, beginner's luck. I was like, dude, it pisses him off so bad. I laughed my ass off, dude. It's like one of the few times you see him like really mad in the movie. It's like, oh shit. But yeah, I love this. He fucking snaps on Miyagi though. And it's understandable. He's 15 at this point, about to be 16. It's understandable though. Like I like this a lot because, at this point, I think any person would be like, dude, this is like child labor. Like you're just trying to get labor out of me. Like give me something. But it's one of those things where if he had told him at the beginning, I'm doing this, so you will have, the patience and you'll have this and you'll have that. He would have, he would not have learned it because you have to, it's an obstacle to get over the obstacle, if that makes any sense. Like you have to get out of your own way.
That's Hollywood though. Like it can be frustrating sometimes in Hollywood where sometimes you'll see actually this is very common in sitcom TV shows where the entire problem can just be, hey, tell the person this. But instead, they purposely write a miscommunication so they can drag it out for 4 more scenes and create new problems. And sometimes it's for comedic reasons, sometimes for dramatic reasons. But this is one of those situations where it's like the movie would fucking suck if he just explained it.
Yeah, that would be a letdown.
This scene is one of the best scenes in the movie. Like when he realizes what he's doing is tearing karate, and he goes from this big dramatic thing. It sounds like that Miyagi's like almost going to lose him. And he's like, oh, Daniel's son, show me wax on, show me paint the fence. That moment, that heroic moment of realization.
It's like a light goes on.
Yeah, it's like Spider-Man when he first climbs the wall, or like, Superman when he first learns to fly. Like
it's the payoff.
And that's when he goes, oh, I have a chance of winning. I know karate.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot because it's so like, it is kind of Hollywood and it is kind of like, it's sitcom kind of like it's like come on, dude.
Let me ask you guys a question.
No, what's up?
Let me ask you guys a question. So as you know, I have trouble seeing this movie from a complete perspective of me just watching it just by virtue of me being in it. But I'm curious, did you guys, how Matt kind of intimated what he already kind of got from the wax on, wax off stuff and the child labor stuff. But did you kind of pick up on it? And then when they revealed the wax on, wax off, show me paint the fence, show me that, did you kind of like feel the light go on at the same time the movie wanted you to light to go on? Or did you kind of like, okay, I saw this coming?
That's a good question.
That's kind of why I brought it up, honestly, because sorry to interrupt, but I just want to say real quick, like I've seen a shit ton of martial art movies. I know this is a way to block. I know I've seen stuff like that, but in the 80s, like it wasn't, we hadn't had this history of martial art films just sort of overtaking like the zeitgeist and stuff. So I imagine as an audience member back then, I might have thought, where the fuck? I don't think I would have connected those dots back then. Mm-hmm. I do now.
So would have paid off for you. So it would have paid off for you. It would have been
my first time watching it. I reckon my mind would have fucking like exploded out of my ears. I would have been like, fuck yeah, let's go. But I reckon leading up to that, I'd be like, what? I don't know if it's the same for you, Colin, but like I picked it up, but from context.
No, I think that it's 50-50 because I knew that there was obviously an ulterior motive for, it's not just chores, like it is kind of almost like payment for his training in a way, but at the same time, it's a double-headed sword. Right. It's like, what
if there was any other training, then you could say that. Right. That's all we saw.
Right. And I think it's also a thing of like, you can train someone to do this and, block and stuff. But when he's done it so many times, it's going to be like, it's going to be reactive. Like you'll be doing that shit in your sleep.
From a musician's point of view is what I see, I see through that lens a lot. Mm-hmm. And the best way to be prepared for anything, especially when it comes to a performance, is to be prepared. And the only way to do that is repetition.
Right.
And so it made total sense to me. It's like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a contrived movie moment.
Gotcha. I see what you mean. I think actually all of us, like Matt and I, have been in bands before at some point, and I always just sang. I never really played. I played a little bit of bass. I have these like sausage link fingers. I can't play guitar, but playing like keys and stuff. That's why I would eventually hit a point where like I hated the song and was just like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like all I'm doing is trying to learn like fucking Clocks by Coldplay. And I'm so fucking burnt out now because I'm tired of this repetition.
It's like 5 notes in that song.
Yeah,
too.
dude. Yeah.
Really
And eventually I got down
span.
to fucking doing it. But when it came to more like stuff where I was like, I like this song, but eventually getting to like the stick-to-itiveness of learning it. And it was like singing was like something I was just born with, like I could just do.
Right.
And it's like, that's so much easier to me. And there's, you know, as a 18, 19-year-old, that's what I was horrible at, was stick-to-itiveness. But now it's like, no, you have to, you don't just wake up, practice for one day and you're fucking, you know, you're amazing. You know, you've got to stick with it like that. And that's
exactly. And martial arts is no different, I'm sure.
Right.
You know, when you're speaking right now, you know, as you're talking, you're not really thinking about what the words mean at every moment that you say the word. You already know how to talk.
Mm-hmm.
You've practiced it for your life. And, you know, martial arts is a language. Music is a language. So once you master the language through repetition, through getting your brain to do what it needs to do, then you don't have to think about those things and you can concentrate on the goal.
It's second nature at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so it made a lot of sense to me that a lot of things that are language like and things that need to be, that are, when you're learning how to use a tool, a lot of repetition is involved. And I just thought it was kind of interesting way that they, you know, how are they going to teach this kid how to, you know, black belt quality karate in 4 months over the summer, you know? How are they going to do this? And this was the way that they creatively came up with, here, you know, if he's painting the fence and he's waxing the floor, he's going to get that repetition that, you know what they say, the 10,000 hours, you know?
Right.
Can I ask, actually, Jeff, have you seen all the sequels or many of them?
Yeah, I have seen the sequels, but honestly, I watched them once when they came out and never watched them again.
Can I ask you, from your memory?
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just trying to think, if I had to write a Karate Kid sequel back then, right?
Yeah.
You got to look at like what made the first successful, and a lot of it are like the unique training stuff, the wax on, wax off, and like, you know, trying to balance in the water and things like that. Like, does any of that stuff either come back, or they try it, or they make attempts to like replicate that? Like, do they treat wax on, wax off like I'll be back? Do they say it again? Do they do any other like weird montages of a training?
Is it like this theme? Like, is it kind of like the saying of the okay?
I don't.
Do you remember anything like that?
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, what I remember is, and I say unfortunately because I found that when they started to use those, as we'd call them, memes now, they were hokey. It just, you know, it didn't work. It didn't land. It's like trying to tell a joke twice and it wasn't, you know what I mean? Once you heard the joke, you know the punchline, and it just didn't have it didn't deliver the same. And I think in order for them, this is just my humble opinion. I'm not obviously I'm not a screenwriter, but in my opinion, I think they tried to, it looked like a money grab. They just try to capitalize on the popularity of the movie rather than try to recreate something new. What's beautiful about Rocky is that although the themes were all the same, what you had was you had him going through different phases of his success, meaning Rocky Balboa. You know, he went from utter nobody to the champion of the world champion. Then he went from celebrity to fallen champion. So, I mean, they found ways to make those sequels interesting. They didn't do that with Karate Kid. They just kept having him get his ass kicked by a bunch of different bullies. And it was
rehashing. From my understanding, number 2, they go to Japan and they fight. It's like some rival, Mr. Miyagi. And then Number 3, it's like Cobra Kai have like a new leader or something, and they fight Cobra Kai again or something.
Wasn't it Hilary Swank?
No. That's the 4th one. The
fourth one. That's right. That's the one that just.
There was a 3rd one.
I was like, no way, this cannot happen.
And then I'm guessing that's just copy pasted this one just with a girl.
Yeah.
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 And then I'm really curious. I just recently discovered there was a cartoon. I can't imagine that was
I
good.
haven't
like,
seen that.
Does he fight alien robots or something? I don't know. I want to find out. Like, it's probably terrible, but it makes me want to see it more for some reason.
Yeah.
I love bad media. Sorry.
No, yeah, picking back up. This is where, like I said, Johnny kind of ruins their date. Miyagi's training. He's doing the fences. I'm just going to summarize like a big chunk of this because this is where, like we've kind of gone over where, he's showing him how he's practically applying these defensive maneuvers now and stuff. And we get the scene with Daniel-san and Allie at the country club. This kind of feels like that moment where it's you got to hit bottom because we got to go back up. There's got to be some kind of conflict even within like the good stuff.
Right.
I like it though. It is a little bit like what Matt said. If she has just said like, hey, yeah, that was not cool what he did, and I did not want that. Like, oh, cool. That's also a lot of stuff. But later on, I don't know that. Yeah. That whole thing where the girl has to be like, didn't you notice this? Didn't you notice that? And I was like, well, dude, no, he's like 15. Like he saw, I would be the same way at 15. It's like, it just seemed like if she'd just been like, yeah, no, that was not a mutual thing. Like, oh, okay, cool. I got you. That would make me want to kick his ass even more. You know what I mean?
We need to address something that I can't believe we haven't talked about this entire episode. Elizabeth Shue as Allie with an I. Allie with an I.
Ali.
She's pretty. Okay, first of all, she's crushing it right now in the show The Boys. And then also just Ralph Macchio has charisma with fucking everybody in this movie, and like I love their scenes together. I think like they've got good chemistry together, and I just want to say I like all of their scenes. Yeah. That's it.
Wait,
that
was your point?
They're very good together.
Yeah, that was it. Not a very insightful point, but I just want to
Elizabeth Shue had admitted that when she met him, and this is on record, so this isn't me making it up or nothing.
Okay, all right.
That she wasn't sure that he was the right choice for a guy that was going to kick Johnny's ass at the end of the movie. She was like, she didn't find him to be particularly attractive. According to the way she describes it.
He was like a heartthrob.
And I you got to understand, this is a kind of interesting point. And I give the credit to certainly John Avelson because he cast the movie single-handedly. There wasn't a bunch of casting directors. It was him. And we all sat with John to get into this movie. Nobody got past John. And so what was interesting is everybody that played in this movie, every single actor was playing, and you hear this on forums, oh, they were older than, no, we were not. We were really the ages that we were playing. We were high school kids. Ralph was the only one that was slightly older than us, but everyone else had just graduated from high school. Everybody was 17, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So, I think it was an honest statement of hers when she said, I didn't think he was that hot. I don't know. And you're saying that they had all this great chemistry. So that just kind of goes to they really did their acting.
Well, yeah, because this is where, they kind of have their falling out with the whole thing at the country club. I love that she smacks Johnny in the face. Like, fuck yeah, good on you, man. Kind of throws a spike into their relationship. He runs to Miyagi's. He finds him drunk. We've kind of talked about the scene, but I don't want to blow right past it because we've seen this picture. Really, really good scene, though. I absolutely love this where he's like, it was his pregnant wife. She died giving birth to their son and no doctor came. And at first I was like, is that like a racial? Is that like a racist? Like at that time, they were like, nobody gives a fuck about you. Like we're off doing something else because of XYZ. But the way that I read it was more like, oh, okay, there was a complication at birth and a doctor couldn't arrive in time. But it's so sad the way he delivers, like, but no doctor came. And I was like not even late, not even too late, just never showed up. I'm like, holy shit.
I don't know. I think they were just doing it for dramatic, I'm not, let your mind wander a little bit, wonder about it. There was some mystery to that on purpose.
I was wondering at the time, it's like, is this at the time when they were doing like Japanese and like internment camps and shit? I was like,
I
was
think
that
you're
the
looking
issue
too much
kind
into
of
it.
thing?
I think,
No, okay.
yeah. I mean, I think at the time, and again, a lot of that deepness that you're talking about of the character came from Pat. I mean, he brought that with him. It wasn't in the script. So, I mean, it ended up in the script, but my point is it wasn't premeditated to that degree. I think he was trying very, strongly, trying very hard to give this character, way more depth than it really. I mean, he could have gotten away with a lot less depth in that character and would have still been effective.
That's sort of what almost happened. Like I was saying before, like the producers wanted to cut the scene because I thought it didn't really match the story, but the director felt strongly that was important for the character, and that's the scene that got him the Oscar nom. So, like, look, a lot of like screenwriting will tell you stuff about. A lot of screenwriting will tell you stuff about, you got to keep the story moving forward. You got to be moving in one direction. However, like there's more to that. It's depth of characters. That's the stuff that makes you love a movie. You can have a good story, but the good characters comes from that extra stuff.
Yeah, I exactly.
Right, 100%.
And there's your nomination for an Oscar, and there's your reason why. You're not at fault for looking deep into that because they kind of intimate that there's something going on. But I don't think there was anything written and anything that
Nothing
need to
concrete.
Other than the fact that, hey, there's some serious shit went down, and this is why he's the way he is. That's really the takeaway.
Right. Well, and I like this scene, and it also gives him like not only 3-dimension, but at the same time, he is not a perfect, flawless, he's like undefeatable. Yeah, I loved that. I absolutely loved it. Yeah, and he puts him into bed. And really, again, we're back to the training. Now we're going offensive. They train him on the punching power. I like him in the boat. And this is where we have Daniel's birthday as well, and he gives him the fucking car. And I was like, dude, that's that's something that I feel like they wouldn't do today. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's almost like a reward for completing your training.
I didn't look at it like that. Yeah, I looked at the car as a symbol of Mr. Miyagi's respect for his student, and the fact that he knew that in the end, all this kid wanted to do was impress a girl, Yeah.
And gotcha.
He just loved Daniel. And that's what it was. That's it. It wasn't a gift. It was sort of like.
Well, also, it's like I would probably have given this to my son if he were here.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I still see it a little bit split where he's like, you had the stick-to-itiveness to like, we would not be this close.
I mean, you can take it that way, and you would not. You could take it that way, and you would not be considered wrong. But I just saw it as. I saw it because of the depth that he was trying to inject into this character. It was easy for me to infer that this was the respect of he understood Daniel and knew that a good fighter is not one dimensional. And at the end of the day, he's got to be able to live his life with some sense of dignity. And I think what a great gift to bestow upon him for his date.
Jeff, can I ask, is there a missing scene here? Because he says, I've got to go. My mum's making me a surprise cake. But then he doesn't go to his mum. He goes to see Ali with an I instead. I'm just wondering, do you know if there's a scene in between that might have been cut out? Or maybe he was just lying?
No, I'm not aware of that. But I will say that it was very obvious to all of us that they were writing the story editing wise as they were filming this thing. Because again, they had a shitload of actors that weren't working. They had a ton of scenes.
Well, that's not uncommon.
So it's very possible that from what you did, what you're getting, you could construe it as being they're chopping it up a little. It's possible. I don't know. But I get that I get that impression too, where it seems jerky at points in the flow.
It's like, I got to go to the store. And it's like, well, now he's at home reading a book.
Right. The continuity is a little wacky. I mean, you want to talk continuity. This is lame, but it's true. I'm on the beach and I have long hair. The tournament scene, you'll see I have like really short kind of new wave hair because it was months later.
Oh, yeah.
And no one really gave a shit about my character. So I had my hair styled, man. And totally not the same kid.
I love, when you see that reshoots in movies and you're like, man, that kid's voice dropped like 2 octaves, That's like the kid from Stranger Things when they had ADR, they're like, dude, we had to ADR everything because his voice was changing. But this is, I mean, kind of, we're really kind of at the tournament here. He makes up with Allie. We're here at the tournament. Miyagi stealing the black belt is fucking amazing. I love it. And he's like, where'd you get this? He's like, Buddha offerings. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, man. That's so good. Like,
that's another, that exact scene is, to me, is another reinforcement of the giving him the car scene. It's the same respect.
Gotcha.
Same respect.
Well, yeah.
The continuity of that, I think, is genius. I think that's really, really good characterization.
Well, and this
character profile.
This is what kills me about as they're going in. Allie is explaining. She's like, you can hit to the head, sternum, kidneys, and ribs. Got it. So why do people give a shit when it's like he won by a kick to the face? Like she literally says as you're walking in, you can kick people in the head. And I said the same thing because I had always heard the myth. I don't know if it's an official. I don't know shit about karate. I don't know if it's official. You can't hit above the shoulders thing. But in this movie, I'm just going off this movie. This is the only thing I'm going off of. And they make the fact that you can hit somebody in the head and that's it. So I was like, okay, cool. Like, what is the stink about?
Yeah, well, I think that it's sort of an unspoken rule that it's like you don't want to kick someone in the balls.
And I was just about to say, it's like hitting below the belt.
It's like a low blow. It's not against the rules, but a real master wouldn't need to.
You don't have to. Yes, got you. Yeah. That totally makes sense. Like, yeah, because I was like, I don't know shit about karate. Boxed a couple of times, got my nose broken. Was like, I'm going home. But yeah, that's the only thing I could think of. Is like, is there some unspoken or is there some official rule? Kind of thing.
That I'm not sure, but that's my take on it. Yeah,
sure.
I can't say for sure.
Well, and it's been the focus of like a lot of articles like crack.com and comedy websites where they're like, yeah, but he won by a kick to the face. Like, dude, I don't know shit about karate, but they established that very quickly in the movie that you can do that. So like, what's the issue here?
You found a plot hole in other people's plot hole.
Yeah, exactly. And it took me like 40 seconds of movie to be like, okay, well, that's stupid. But yeah, so the tournament gets underway. We see Cobra Kai losing some guys, winning, some of them winning. The whole thing with Dan, I like a lot of Daniel's fights. This nervous energy that he has is so good. Yeah. He doesn't have the badass like Apollo Creed. I'm going to go in there and smoke.
No, he's flying. He's flying by the seat of his pants, and you know it.
And literally, when they're walking in,
he's Luke going for the Death Star.
Yeah, well, it's great when she has to be the one to explain the rules to him, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like, but I also like the fact that she's not just like his mom sitting on the sidelines. Like, she's there doing things, and like at least give some kind of something for her to do, not just be like a cheerleader, And I was like, I like that she was the one giving us that information. That's cool. I really dug that.
Interesting choice. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we're pretty much here. This is, we've got Cobra Kai. That's where they, as someone who has dislocated the same knee twice in their life in less than 10 years, seeing him go down like that made me like, you could hear my stomach like,
yeah.
I was like, oh my God. He's got the wrap on the ribs, like all of this shit. And like the pain that he's in, there's nothing like looking up and seeing your knee on like the side of your leg. And you're just like, try not to vomit. You're like, oh my God, dude. But this
when Johnny did the sweep the leg move and nearly, I guess he did break his leg, Daniel's leg. When Mr. Miyagi did the that was a little outside of poetic license for me. I was like, come on, this guy ain't getting up after that.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's the whole thing of even like, oh, God, never mind. I'm going to go off on a rocky tangent, and I just fucking can't. The one thing that I actually do like is when that guy sweeps the leg, and it's not, or when that guy kicks him in the leg, he's on top of him. He's like, Daniel, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't want to do that. And I was like, that's fucking nice. I really, really like that because he's like, this guy has been the one kind of questioning things a little bit,
Well,
but
he knew that was an illegal move. He knew he was going to get taken down a point for that. and he didn't. And you got to remember the whole idea of karate is to win with honor and dignity, not to steal and not to cheat. And he knew instinctively that his sensei was making him do something that was dishonorable, and that was embarrassing.
And this is what I was talking about before when I was saying this is why I kind of like the fact that Kreese is this like James Bond-esque villain.
Psychopath,
yeah, because it allows the other kids to be more realistic. Because then that way, or it gives them another depth, another layer of 3-dimension. Because now they can get a chance to have their own little journey of realizing their master, their sensei was wrong. And he's not the only one. I think later on, like, you get a small moment from Johnny when he sort of realizes that, like, you know, maybe the Cobra Kai way isn't the right way to go.
Well, yeah, they're starting to question their own values.
Yeah.
Well, I dig that. I like seeing the fracture in this iron grid of like guys who have just been these badasses the whole time. But you can even see it in the kids of like, dude, this is just a tournament. You know, I'm going to permanently injure this kid over a fucking tournament. And it's like, just get it. Like, it almost feels like there's something between Kreese and Miyagi. Like, he beat me a long time ago. Like, you know,
there is. I mean,
fuck. It's like, is that in the second one? Or did I miss something?
Well, if you watch Cobra Kai, they go into that. And Kreese is a Vietnam vet. And so you don't know that at the time. I'm not sure that in the dojo, if you see any of his Vietnam,
dojo,
there's one where it's like karate tournament champion,
yeah, and so Kreese is fighting the war.
Right.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's something that I
he's got PSTD or PTSD or whatever.
Yeah,
he's got some kind of shit going on.
Yeah,
nobody's that evil without being fucked up in the head to begin with. And there's something going on there, and that's the backstory there.
I never connected those dots. I never thought of that.
Yeah, that's I like that they elaborate on that. Like that's really cool. And really, I mean, kind of, really the last two scenes here when they take him away, they're like, "Hey, you're done, dude. See you later." You know, and I love when Miyagi, it's so loud and powerful, and it clap, like it's the sound that they use on that.
That's a Hollywood moment, man.
Yes,
right,
dude. It is like that's
every time someone asks you to do something, you go, okay,
dude. Exactly. Like
they know it. You know, you mean business.
That's the moment of seeing John Rambo stab that knife next to fucking that dude's head in part 2. But yeah, so that he puts him back out there. I love right when they're about to pass off the trophy. Here he fucking comes at the last minute. But this choreography is great from people that, you know, like you said, did not know karate and were being taught this, you know, months in advance.
They're amazing.
They're so scrappy. I love that. It's not just like take a hit, then go back. Take a hit, go back. It's like take a hit, roll, take a hit, roll. Like
once again, two things to mention. One is that this is not. I'm going to say this, and I know some people will bristle when I say it, but it's not a karate movie. It's karate is the vehicle in which they're telling the story.
Sure.
And so it's important to understand that these are just kids that are doing their best learning karate. So it's not like a Bruce Lee movie or a Chuck Norris movie where it is a karate movie, and that's really all that's important. The acting is secondary and the storyline is secondary. Just get to the fight scenes. That's not this movie. You know, this is, you know, could have been a John Hughes film. It's that kind of 80s movie.
Right.
You know?
100%.
Right.
Yeah, it's a growing up movie. And the second thing to mention, and I think you'll find this interesting, is that tournament scene was actually shot at a tournament scene. That wasn't
cool.
That was not a staged thing. I remember that day big time because we were there all weekend, and wow, there was thousands of people there, and they were all there for the tournament. Some were sequestered aside and said, "Look, we're filming this movie in between," and they worked it out where we could shoot the scenes we needed to shoot, interspersing the actual tournament that was going on. And in fact, you'll see interviews where I think it was Billy Zabka has mentioned that they felt a little uncomfortable, you know, doing their fake karate while all these guys are actually there for a real karate show. I mean, a real karate tournament, and they were just making a movie, and they felt really silly sometimes. But I think that led to the realism, and it was a brilliant move not to stage it, to actually infiltrate a tournament.
Hell yeah, I love stuff like I'm a big fan of and I'm sure you know of them, the Eddie and the Cruisers movies. That came out.
I love that movie.
Love them. Well, in the second one, they had this huge show in Canada or something, and
I was gonna
the big. Oh, did you hit me with On the Dark Side?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Is that right?
Yeah, there you go, dude. Fuck yeah. I love Eddie and the Cruisers, man. Especially, and my point is on the second one, when he comes back and he's like, "Hey, I'm Eddie Wilson," blah, blah. They filmed that before a Bon Jovi concert. I was like, "Oh, that's fucking rad!" And like the place was packed, man. That's so cool.
It really cool. I know. Good move. It was a really smart move on John Avelson to do that.
Use it while it's there. Don't make something up. Use it if something's going on.
Also, they used, if I remember correctly, they used 5 cameras.
Oh shit!
2 steady cams, 2 booms, and another another camera. They had all these angles, and they managed to shoot all these angles without getting, stuff in the scene that they didn't want. It must have been an enormous maze for them to work through. That's why it took so long.
Gotcha. Well, and again, it feels so 3-dimensional when you're around there. It's very, you don't feel like they just hang out on one shot for a lot. But yeah, he fucking, he cranes up, kicks him in the face. And, man, that's it. Like I love as they're hoisting up, you can see Johnny's almost like crying. He's like, dude, you're all right, man. Like I didn't really want to do that. Like I really didn't want to, I felt no honor in winning that way, and it's like, I love that.
That's exactly it. Because him losing in that way and him sort of apologizing reinforces the Miyagi teachings, So they basically they closed the parentheses on that, they made that complete.
Yeah, dude, I really enjoyed and the fact that he kicks, they look at Miyagi, movie ends. That's it. We don't need to see them hanging out afterwards. We don't need to see. It's like that's what we've come here.
There was another scene. There was another scene that didn't make it. And it was a scene out in the parking lot. And,
cool.
Yeah. And then they filmed that. There was some shit that went down between Kreese and Pat Morita. I think they used part of that.
That must be what I was talking about from Karate Kid 2.
Right. They that's where they used it.
Okay.
They were going to use that scene. That was supposed to be the ending scene of the movie. And instead they didn't need it as it turned out, as you pointed out, Colin. I mean, that's a great ending of the movie. Everyone rushes Daniel and credits.
That nod and the freeze frame on Mr. Miyagi is like that seal of approval. Like that's what he's looking for the whole movie. He gets it. That's great.
Yeah.
And it sort of summarizes their whole like relationship between the two characters.
Yeah. It really makes it complete.
You were talking about you and the Freddy gang been reconnecting and stuff. Like those Cobra Kai things. Like, tell me about that. That sounds pretty cool.
Oh yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, the Freddy gang, as I like to call it, is Israel, and these are the real names: Israel, Frankie, Tom, Ken, and myself. We were cast in this movie, and we really had parts, but they didn't need us, as it turned out. And so there was a lot of downtime. There was a lot of time that we fucked around and just had fun and just screwed around, because we were basically showing up for work and then told to hang in our trailer. But I'm trying to remember what specifically we were talking about with regard to that. What was it?
You were saying, I think because of Cobra Kai, it's sort of like rekindled some old friendships and stuff. I thought that was very sweet.
Well, I can tell you about some of the adventures that we had outside of Karate Kid. Well,
Sure.
I know that there were. I mentioned earlier that at some point that there was, that kind of weird tension that they created on the set for everybody, and so when they wrapped, it was like, okay, it's a wrap. We were done, and all of a sudden, everybody was like friends. We were all cool, And so I remember going to Frankie Avalon's house, Frankie Avalon, which is amazing. And we would go to his house because Frankie Avalon Jr. was one of the Freddy's gang. And that's Frankie Avalon's son, obviously. And so he's a drummer. And so we would go to Frankie Avalon's house, and he'd jump on the drums. I'd pick up a keyboard. And believe it or not, Billy Zabka would come, and he'd play guitar. And there's a couple of the other guys from the Cobra Kais that would come, and we would just get stoned and try to rock out. And it sounded like shit. I'm sure we didn't know any songs together. We just started jamming, and we did that a lot. It was a lot of fun. Those are some of my more fond memories of unfortunately being on set. It was kind of every man for himself. I mean, being on a movie set like that, where you're, it's a career for people, this is a job. And part of that job is to try to get as much, energy into your career so that, what you want is you want FaceTime on the camera. So it was very competitive, and all of us were, appropriately cast as our age. So we were all fresh out of high school. And so the set felt like high school. It felt like I just graduated from high school and I'm right back into friggin' high school, because that's what it was. It was just very competitive and But I know there was something specific we talked about in the last 100 hours or whatever it was, and I can't remember what it was, and I'm trying to remember it.
It's not coming to me. You did mention what was his name? There was someone else on set, someone's son.
Tom Fridley?
No, it was someone else.
Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen.
Yeah, Steve McQueen's son. Chad
McQueen is in that movie, of course. He's the guy that goes, "You're dead meat, man. You're dead meat."
Oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
in the locker room.
So many celebrity connections.
There are so many.
Movie.
I mean, it couldn't have been an accident. Tom Fridley is John Travolta's nephew, Frankie Avalon Jr., Elizabeth Shue's brother, Andrew Shue, who went on to have a career. There was just so many weird connections. I'm not sure how all that happened, but it was really cool. But Chad McQueen, that guy was not acting either. He could have been Kreese. I mean, that guy literally was. He was just, he always scowling, and he had these crazy parties up in Hollywood, and just he was a party animal, literally a party animal, and I remember that. But it's what's interesting about the Cobra Kai is that there was Tony O'Dell. I'm going to get some of these names wrong, I think. There was Rob Garrison, and there was Ron Thomas, and then there was Billy Zabka, Chad McQueen. I think it was those 5 guys, but it's only 4 of them that actually really had any speaking roles. Chad only had that one role. That one, you're dead meat. And for some reason, when that movie was over, he just kind of disappeared. I mean, he's been asked back and stuff, and he's not interested. I really haven't followed his career. I don't really know why, but people don't remember him because he really hasn't stayed in the forefront. The other 4 guys did. Unfortunately, one, I think it was Rob that passed away.
Is he the one that goes, get him a body bag or something?
Yeah. He passed away. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. He died during the filming of the first season of Cobra Kai. And the scenes, here's creepy. The scenes that they filmed were of him dying.
Yeah, I was gonna say
that's like really somewhere. That was really happening. I mean, I found out that he died after I watched that, and going back and realized that he passed away, and he knew he was dying when they filmed that. And I'm like, holy shit, how heavy is this?
That is heavy. Man, damn.
Yeah, that was weird. I thought it was weird.
I think I did read somewhere that they chose to have his character. It was meant to be a reference to his line during the fight, like get him a body bag, or he needs something about a body bag.
Yeah.
But to have that extra layer of like reality put into it, that is heavy.
Yeah. I thought it was odd.
Maybe the producers didn't know at the time.
Oh, they knew. I think they knew. He was dying of cancer, so I mean, it wasn't a surprise. Okay. I think they obviously he must have come to them and said, "Hey, look, I'm not going to last, so let's do something with this." And maybe he did that because I mean, obviously, it was with his consent. And I'm not involved with the crew as they are today. I haven't talked to Ralph since the '80s. So I can't really say what happened. But
Well, let's move to a lighter note, shall we? You were mentioning off air a few stories that I thought would be great to just capture on air.
Sure.
While we're recording, so I want to get the most out of it. So number one, I want to give a shout outs to one of our biggest fans here at Midnight Double Feature, Patrick Harrington, who constantly is asking us about the wrestler and Red Dawn.
Yeah.
And you were just telling me off air, which got me laughing. And I was like, I got to get this guy talking about this. Throughout your career, you once auditioned for that film, didn't you?
Yeah, Red Dawn. It was actually called the Little Soldiers or Little Soldiers. That was, all these movies have working titles before they're released. And I don't know when they changed it to Red Dawn, but when it came out, it was Red Dawn. What's interesting about Red Dawn, John Milius was the director, and he was this very ominous character. I mean, himself, he was a big guy, and he just had this presence about him. And he was like John Avelson for Karate Kid. He was casting the movie himself. Everybody in Hollywood must have went out for this movie. I met Patrick Swayze. He was there. I remember there was C. Thomas Howell, and they were doing is they would have us line up, and then they were selecting each of us to put in pairs and do a scene together. And I actually did a scene with C. Thomas Howell for my audition. I didn't get the movie; he got the movie. That's why we know his name and not mine.
An experience though.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that is what I think was really interesting was that everybody that was in the quote Rat Pack or the Brat Pack, was up for that movie. I mean, there was just tons of people that I met. And what's funny is that during the auditions, none of those people, outside of maybe Patrick Swayze, none of those people were really famous. They were just known, you knew them because they were actors in the area and, people knew who they were, but it wasn't like they were big deals. And, who knew? A lot of them went on to become pretty big stars, and synonymous with the 80s. Would have been cool to get that movie, but did not happen for me. But that's all I can tell you. MGM. Awesome. I remember it was going down to MGM Studios.
That's cool, man. Yeah. Look, we've already talked about a bunch of stuff in our interview that we'll probably attach to this. We talk all about your work with Survivor, with Eye of the Tiger, Karate Kid, Hot Moves, some other great films and projects. Your what was it? Composition work on shows like The Bachelor and there's some others that I'm
there's so many
right
Pawn Stars. The list is just it's just a ton of TV stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. But since this is primarily a Karate Kid episode, so I wanted to ask: did you have any other tidbits or thoughts or reflections on Karate Kid, looking back at it now from your time back then, or anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, you mean specifically, I think one of the big takeaways for me is just how ingrained this movie has become in society today, in entertainment, the entertainment world today. It's amazing because nobody expected this then. Nobody was even thinking about it. I had a friend who actually worked on the movie. I didn't know he apparently was an extra, and I met him years later as a drummer friend of mine, and he thought it was an after-school special. I mean, he had no idea that this was a feature film, but it was a Columbia Picture movie. Had some major people behind it, Jerry Weintraub, and that's pretty much as big as you're going to get. But no one can, if you're the Beatles, you're making Sgt. Pepper. You don't know that it's going to be Sgt. Pepper. You know what I mean? You hope so, but and so what happened is nowadays, for many years, Karate Kid did not really, didn't move the needle much. There was a couple sequels, as we know about, but beyond that, it was just a good movie from the 80s, and people remembered it fondly, and it didn't do much. But with Cobra Kai, it's blowing up, just blowing up. I mean, it's just so cool, and I'm starting to reconnect with some of the cast that I hadn't talked to in many, many, many years. Israel, I was on the phone with him and Frankie Avalon Jr. just the other day, and we're starting to swap stories and talk a little bit about some of the things and what happened to you after this and what happened after that. And it's sort of come full circle for me. But, with my connection with Survivor, a lot of the people in the cast don't know that I'm in Survivor. I mean, it's not like we're friends and I didn't call them up and go, hey, Israel, guess what? They know now that we've talked. And when I tell them, they're like, mind is blown. I mean, because it's like, what a weird. So Karate Kid's never really ever left my life. It's always been a part of my life. And now it's getting sort of a second life, I don't know what's going to happen with Cobra Kai. I don't know how many of the casts they're going to bring back. Unfortunately, my character and the Freddy's Gang character really didn't have enough meat on the bones for it to really make any reason to bring us back. So I doubt that'll happen. I do see a possibility maybe of Freddy coming back, but I mean, he was just a kid that he met at the apartment he lived in. I can't imagine that, but it could happen.
Yeah, like we said earlier, like he was kind of like a exposition character, and then they cut a lot of his scenes out, unfortunately. But,
yeah.
Still a lot of love for him there, man. I got to say, like as I was sort of saying before, like I had such a blast watching this again and just sort of getting nostalgic and stuff. Like I want to check out. I'm just curious. I got FOMO. I want to check out the sequels, the new show, all of it, man, because I feel like I've missed out on something. So
yeah. Well,
I've only seen the
you might want to avoid
happens.
the Jade Smith one.
Yeah. Although I am a Jackie Chan fan, but I hadn't seen that one. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah. I'm a bit worried about it though.
That one seemed a little contrived. I mean, and to be honest, the other Rockies, here we are talking Rocky. The other Karate Kids were they never matched the power that the original did. And that's not unusual with sequels, but in this series, I don't even think about the other ones too much. They just didn't have it.
Cool. Well, look, I think we can probably wrap it there.
Cool,
before
man.
we go out, I just wanna remind everybody, or any new listeners out there, you can find Midnight Double Feature on social media, Facebook, Instagram, the works. Give us a 5-star review on iTunes if you're feeling generous, and don't forget to stick around. Join the after party. It is our Facebook community group. If you want to see the memes, behind the scenes, all that fun stuff. And as we mentioned before, you can find Jeff at jeffreybryanmusic.com, and also check him out on Spotify. He's got a new single called Count Me In. It's Count Me In. I got that right. Yeah.
Count Me In and Go Ashore are 2 new singles. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're bangers, man. So make sure you
look me up on Spotify. Jeffrey Bryan on Spotify.
Fuck yeah. Anyways, that's it for us now with an action-packed episode of The Karate Kid. This has been a long one, but I've had a lot of fun. So thanks for sticking around, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, man. Take care.
Until next time, catch you guys later. Peace.